Greetings and salutations. You've successfully arrived at the Bloody Disgusting Network. The passage of time will now bring you to something strange, unique, and idiosyncratic. Have a good time.
My friendship to all of you precludes my involvement with any one of you. But if you wanna make love, then I do too, and I'll be right there behind you. All in the name of oh, all in the name of oh, all in the name of
oh. Greetings, constant listeners, and welcome to another episode of The Losers Club, a Stephen King podcast presented by Bloody FM, the #1 horror podcast network in the world. I'm your host, Michael, never been what you'd call a crying Rothman, having a smoke on Main Street here in Jody, Texas, where the streets have been blocked off. The lights are strung up for some kind of soiree that'll go on until midnight. And knowing these folks, probably even later, you see, I'm no stranger to these parts, but I am a stranger to these people, at least in this life. And if I look close enough, I swear I can see yesterday before my eyes. that Walgreens right there. It used to be a Western Auto. And that Subway up the road, they served actual real meat long, long time ago. Prong Burgers, if that name rings a bell. Probably won't. But it sure will to my fellow constants, all of whom have been joining me the last 5 weeks as we drive and dive through Stephen King's 11/22/63. If you can tell by the tone of my voice, sadly, our travels come to an end today with The Green Card Man, our 6th and final episode as we close the book for good. First up, she's having a chat with the talk of the town and bringing not one, but 2 glasses of punch back from the table. Jen, say hello and tell us if you're ready to say goodbye to Jody.
Hey, this is Jen, Jody Doins Adams, and no, but yes, I have really loved spending time in this world and really doing this deep dive on this book. But also, I've been chomping at the bit to talk about the ending and talk about my overall thoughts. So I'm happy to get to the end. It's going to be sad to leave because, this book is just incredible and, few books can compare. But also it's been a long, 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 strange trip. So, yeah, happy to get to the end, share final thoughts.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is kind of those, it's a happy sad. It's kind of like The Cure.
Bittersweet, some would call it,
Yeah. Well, coming out of the 7-Eleven where, hey, we used to top off our Sunliner no more than 3 days ago. Flieger, say hello, hand me that new pack of smokes, and tell us how you feel in these final hours of our journey.
This is Dan Sadie Flieger. I don't really have a nickname. I burned them all out.
Yeah.
As we know by The Green Card Man, it starts to deteriorate over time, so maybe it's best I just stick with that one. Yeah, it's been a great journey. Sad to see it end, but also happy to see it go. So good to be here with you kind folk for this final celebration in the installation.
Well, I'm glad we could make it all together. The 3 of us, we've been through a lot. We've been battered and bruised, gone to the hospital together. We've assassinated assassinators together.
We've been to the Barrens together,
We've been to the Barrens together. How could we forget the Barrens? But
it does feel like a long time ago, though.
If that feels like forever ago at this point. But we have a new constant, if you will. We've had special guests this entire time, all losers that have come in and come out. This loser for the 6th episode, he's returning. He's a familiar face. I mean, they're all familiar faces, but this is definitely a familiar face to this series. Mr. Caffrey, say hello again and share your sentiments as it relates to our farewell along these parts.
This is Dan, and we dance, Caffrey. Yeah, I'm ready, man. I got shit to do. I gotta get... No, in all seriousness, I think I even told you all this the other day. I finished the book a couple of days ago, and right away I was tempted to start it over again, which obviously plays into the themes of the book, but also you want to make sure you took in everything. You want to make sure you absorbed everything, which I think speaks to how Jake longs to absorb time in this book. But I kept thinking, I give it a very close read, obviously, because it's for the podcast. But I kept thinking, was there anything I missed? Should I have remembered certain plot points? And does that affect how I interpret the rest of the book. I didn't start it over, of course. I have another big book I'm getting through right now called The Deluge by Stephen Markley that's also great. But I'm also excited to get to some maybe, 250-page books, some 350-page books, not two almost 900-page books back to back. So it's been a great journey. I've loved listening to all the episodes and being on part 3. But, they can't all be mammoth epics. You have to get to something breezy soon. So I'm excited for that.
I'm excited to close the book on this, but it is fitting, or perhaps just oddly coincidental, that this all culminates basically days or mere hours after we all hung out together in person. I think that definitely fuels a lot of the sort of bittersweetness of this all. And I don't know about you, but we're also, 2 days away from Christmas. But even though I, celebrated both Hanukkah and Christmas as a kid, and I'm not even a religious person, I do look at this time like as probably like the peak of the season, in the sense that like everyone's still in it, we're still all together, and then Christmas comes around, and even by Christmas afternoon I'm like, it kind of seems like the magic's already faded away.
You're double dipping, my friend. Yeah,
we're in a good place right now, but certainly some saccharine moments in here.
It's strange because I don't know if y'all get like this around the holidays. The holidays from here, it's a time when time itself seems to really speed up, but it's also the time where I feel the most reflective. So it's this strange sensation of trying to take it all in and not analyze it, but just frame yourself in it and frame your life wherever it's at the moment. But then it's all rushing at you at the same time. I think that's a feeling that probably increases as you get older. I think that's just how time tends to work. But yeah, so definitely an apt time to be reading this book or finishing this book.
Hey, cause wheel, it's what happened. We managed to hit the 60th anniversary of the assassination and finalized our 7th season with this coverage. So I think it was very fitting. I think it was a great culmination. I'm going to keep using that word throughout this episode. But look, it ain't over until the pies are thrown and those Glenn Miller songs are blasting, and we're still hours away from that. So let's put down our glasses and gather around my phone. Now, you wouldn't believe this, but I just downloaded this cool new app for the Dallas Morning News Weekly. And I got a surprise 7-day free subscription when I applied. I didn't even have to put my credit card in, no shaky hands or anything. So why don't we go check it out?
We're not, exactly the Washington Post, okay?
No, we're not. We run stupid headlines because we think they're funny. We run maimings on the front page because we got good art. And I spend 3 weeks bitching about my car because it sells papers. But at least it's the truth.
All right. Like I said, we've got 7 days to use this app, but we really only need it for a minute or two. Just to remind me to cancel when we're done. I just hate it when I forget to, cancel the subscription fees, and then, those fees rack up and everything. Anyway, Jen, you are not just the recap ruler. You're also our research wizard. So I'm going to give you my phone, and you could read a few of the articles you found to catch us up on where we're at right now.
Sweet. All right. In the aftermath of the failed assassination, Jake is questioned by the Dallas police, including an FBI agent named Hosty. They don't quite believe Jake's story, which is that he was friends with Oswald and guessed what he was going to do, but they also conclude that he wasn't exactly in on it. In the middle of the investigation, or the questioning, Jake gets a thank you call from the still alive JFK, who doesn't seem to realize the magnitude of what just happened. His wife calls later and thanks Jake on behalf of her children. Hosty later stops by Jake's hotel room to tell him that his room is bugged, and J. Edgar Hoover thinks he's some kind of spy or secret agent. They want him to disappear, and Jake is more than happy to oblige. While he's on the run, Jake hears about an earthquake that kills 7,000 people in California. Jake begins to wonder if there might be a problem, which I originally just summed up as a ruh-roh. He travels back to Maine, where he meets the green card man. This new man tells him about Kyle, not our editor Kyle, but the yellow, orange, black / dead card man who died because he couldn't keep all the threads straight in his head. It seems that every trip through the rabbit hole begins a new thread. It's not a complete reset, and everything he does creates a certain type of residue over all of the realities. Stay tuned for a Dan or Mike to explain how all this works to me later in this episode. I get a little fuzzy. The green card man says Jake needs to go back through the rabbit hole to see what he's done. Not ominous at all. This new version of his reality is a war-torn hellscape. Picture something between the Hunger Games, District 12, and the Matrix future, and you'll get the picture. While wandering around in horror, Jake bumps into none other than Harry Dunning. He gives Jake a bleak alternate history of America in which JFK is elected to a second term. The Vietnam War still happens, just slightly different. The Beatles get back together and earthquakes begin to tear the earth apart. Jake goes back through the rabbit hole and takes some time to figure out what to do. Theorizing that any attempt to contact Sadie in the past will likely have major repercussions for the future, he decides to return to 2011 and leave her behind. Jake finishes the manuscript and buries it, hoping a Stephen King-related podcast will one day find it and read it. Jake considers sending a postcard to Deke telling him to look out for Johnny Clayton, but ultimately decides it's too risky. Jen cries again. With the circle now closed, Jake moves on with his life. But one day while teaching at a different school, he meets a girl from Killeen, Texas, where he bought all those condoms. This prompts him to look up Sadie and discover that she's being awarded a Citizen of the Century Award. He travels to the awards ceremony and catches up to her at a block party reception. Sadie seems to recognize Jake, and he tells her they knew each other in another life. Then In the Mood starts to play, and they dance. Oh, how they dance.
All right, Jen.
Oh, good job.
You've done a great job this entire series. Let's give applause to Jen. Awesome recaps. Awesome
Throwing
recaps.
pies in my face.
Yeah. How could you leave all this?
Oh.
Yeah, so this is going to be kind of like a little bit of an epilogue. I mean, I think there's a pretty big speed through round. In a way, it's almost like the Song of Susanna chapter of this. If you're looking at this as a Dark Tower series in itself in one tomb. But anyway, now that we're all caught up, let's ditch this app. I did already cancel it, so sorry. No more research whatsoever. I apologize. So let's head over to this section's Heroes and Villains.
I'm gonna have to kill this fucking clown. Welcome to the Losers Club, asshole!
All right, this is going to be a weird section for us because really this is really just Jake. You know, he's the running man, if you will. And there's some references to the running man if you catch my drift. But he really is a running man in this section for sure. And I think a lot of the questions will be related to Jake, but also some sort of, some of the peripheral characters in here. But I think this is also going to be the section where we talk about the ending. And so get ready. This is going to be as it has been, honestly, the last 4 or 5 episodes. This is the meat. This is real the meat that we get to make our cat burgers or our prong burgers. So let's talk about Jake. I wanted to bring this up because at the top of this section, Jake mentions, quote, the coldness creeping over him. We talked a little bit about his dark passenger, but what do you make of this coldness, Jen? Especially since you seem to be the one that's really psychoanalyzing Jake this entire series. So I had to start with you. Sorry.
Yeah. And I've got a lot of thoughts about him. But yeah, it is interesting to see him shift into kind of cold, like action mode, and like I wonder, because he is not really mourning Sadie, he is already planning to go back and save her. And it's like it kind of speaks to this whole like codependent thing that I've been kind of harping on, is like he won't allow himself to admit that this thing is really over. He's like, what can I do to fix it? How can I fix it? And it's just like that is what's occupying his mind. And I think it helps him get through this interrogation. But it also, like, I don't know, it just kind of keeps him from really thinking about the magnitude of what he's done until it really kind of hits him in the face,
Yeah. Caffrey, what do you make of this coldness?
I feel like the coldness is simply because he realized he fucked up, right? I mean, I love the way this book ends because, and once again, this is a theme we've been dancing around the entire series so far. It's the small everyday joys triumphing over these big picture victories, which are never victories because they're impossible to achieve. I think the mission was doomed from the start. And I think it was last episode, you guys all talked about how part 5 is so frustrating to watch because you're like, Jake, just stop. Don't do the mission. Just stay in, Jody. What are you doing? You're like, you can see it coming from a mile away. He fucks that up, which obviously fucks the world up. And he's realizing all of that here. I mean, I think the 100% right thing for him to have done was to stay in Jody, not worry about Kennedy, and just live his life. And now he can't do that at all. I mean, he can, but he can't live it with Sadie. And I think the coldness for me is just time rushing up on him and him realizing that his best shot at happiness at this point is still a compromised happiness. He's not going to get a happy ending. He gets somewhat of a happy ending with Sadie, as we'll discuss later on, I'm sure, but not the ideal happy ending that he wanted. And he doesn't get a life with her. Yeah. So for me, the coldness is just, in a weird way, him being, I don't want to say he's back where he was at the beginning of the novel, because I don't think he's unfeeling, and I think he is trying to do the right thing, but he had fulfillment and he kind of blew it in a way. And I don't know. I don't know if that means, I don't know if I want to say it's a complete tragedy, because again, the ending is bittersweet, and I think more realistically speaks to how time works and how our lives all work. But it is kind of heartbreaking to see him get everything he wants and not realize that that's everything he wants. Like for real, I during part 5 especially was like, just stop, dude. Just stop it. Like, what are you doing? You're screwing up. But and then again, we can all relate to that. We all have things in our past. We're like, man, if I just done this one thing or stayed with this person or whatever else. So anyway, I know we'll get to all that. But.
And that's what makes us so palpable, I think. You know, Flieger, what about you? Coldness. What do you make of this? Similar thoughts?
Yeah, and I mean, he got blood on his hands, right? When back in the past when it was just Dunning, but now he's got Oswald, arguably Sadie. There's a lot of death associated directly with his actions, and I just think that changes you, right? You can't go on as the same person. And I like the idea of him staying in the past, but I think we've seen that the past is going to catch up with him, right? Things are going to happen. There's earthquakes. Isn't there a tornado that wipes out the homes on Mercedes Street? There really is no, even if he did stay in the past with Sadie, I think they would be on the run constantly, like looking over their shoulder. I don't know that he would have any peace. And I think he's starting to realize that the way Caffrey said, like a doomed mission, I think he's kind of making peace with that like no matter what he does, it's not going to work out great. And have you guys seen that Rick and Morty episode with the Eric Clapton song, It's in the Way That You Use It?
Oh my God!
There's a Rick and Morty episode.
Is that like the
Tears from Heaven?
Went to a party.
It's
that
in
song
the way that you use it.
Oh.
Wait, which is the one he wrote about his wife getting ready?
Wonderful Tonight.
Wonderful Tonight. Sorry, that's what.
But and Rick and Morty, basically, it's a time warp, and Morty has this entire lifetime with this woman, and it's perfect. And they play the Eric Clapton song. They survive a plane crash. It's like alive. They come out of it, but then his dad accidentally resets it. And he tries to go back and recapture the magic with her, but she just won't fall in love with him. And it's, you know, you think of Jake going back and being like, maybe I can get Sadie again. But even then, it's like he's going to be kind of like playing a script to make her fall for him.
Yeah.
It just won't be as genuine as the first time around.
Yeah,
which is
that's a good point.
Really sad.
Yeah,
well,
it adds even more. Oof.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, he fell in love with Sadie because he was trying not to, you know, and I think he is the kind of person that always has to have someone to save or some kind of mission. And that's what kind of takes him out of himself. And if Sadie is his mission when he moves to Jody, it's not going to feel the same. It's not going to work out the same. And it's like what he really needs to realize is that like you have to embrace these moments when you can, and you can't like step outside of them and then go back and recreate things. And I have a lot more thoughts about that for later, but it would be interesting to think if he did just say, fuck Kennedy, I'm just going to stay in Jody. Because I think the earthquake that wipes out Mercedes Street happens after the assassination. So like, if we think about how much of a ripple that's going to cause, like how much would he living in Jody change the world? And I know that's something he kind of thinks about, but like, could he exist? And he would be in ignorance of it too. So like that ignorance is bliss kind of thing. He wouldn't know how much he's fucked everything up, but he would always feel this guilt over his head because he also wouldn't know how bad the alternative is, you know? So it's just kind of a damned if you do. It's really just a big lesson about like, you can't control other people.
Yeah. I mean, save these thoughts on the what ifs here for the ending here, because this is the great debate. We've been talking about this for the last 4 or 5 episodes, but this is where Flieger and I remember like we were debating nonstop about like, because you believe that it doesn't matter, like he had to go back, like he couldn't even stay in Jody. The time is going to catch up to him. Whereas I remember being like, no, if he just stayed in Jody, he'd be fucking fine. Time would leave him alone. So I want to keep that thread going because I think it's an important one to keep as it relates to the larger themes that we're discussing here. And just a fun thing to debate.
It would be funny to see him recreate like her falling into his hands and him just like trying to catch her breast. Like, oh,
He's just
wow.
walking around like
They're
getting
what a
ready for
creep.
some
He's
honking.
got like a baseball mitt on.
Yeah, he's like, come on, Sadie, down the middle.
It'd probably be like a curb up where he's just like, I'm going to stand here. It's like, well, what's wrong with me standing here? It's like, I need to stand here. And because he knows that that's the place he has to catch her. And it's
And
just
then
like,
she goes to his house and his like pantry's full with pound cake and condoms,
yeah, just,
you know?
just nothing.
He's like, oh, just
It's like,
in
wow.
case.
It's like, oh, I know where to get more condoms, you know, because we did it last time. What?
Right.
Anyway, so you mentioned something, Caffrey, about how he knows that he's fucked up. And I think that because again, he's writing this as a journal, even though he has like a literal journal part at the end, you know, with his final thoughts. But wouldn't you say he does speak like a man who knows he's already failed? The guy that's like, I think about the scene has anyone seen Air yet?
Yeah.
The new one?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, like half of it. I need to finish it.
Yeah.
Well, there's a great moment at the end where, so like throughout the movie, Matt Damon continues to keep going to like this convenience store where he picks up stuff, but he has chats with the guy that works there about basketball players and stuff. And in the end, the guy's like, "Oh yeah, we all knew about it, or we all knew Jordan was the guy." And but literally like 4 or 5 scenes before, they're trashing on Jordan the entire time. I kind of feel like it's the same situation with Jake, where like he was so obsessed with this mission, and then he like just cuts out a photo of Sadie and like tosses the rest aside in this section, and then he's kind of just like, no, this is what I love, this is who I love, this is who I need to be with. She's home. But that kind of all screams like, yeah, you're just realizing this now, and you realize that you probably are not going to be able to. These emotions are it's too little, too late now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I don't know. I think that's how life works in general, right?
Yeah.
It's always easy for us to, like, I have this situation. I won't go into the whole story, but I have this thing that happened to me when I was graduating college, where I got offered this interview for a comedian I really love, and I decided not to do it because I was doing a Chicago thing, and at the last minute, I'm like, oh no, I need to do it, and I kind of fucked it up, and whatever it is. And at my worst, I'll look back on that sometimes. I'm like, oh, what if I, that's why I'm not right where I want to be in my career, because I didn't do that one thing. And it's like, no, that's bullshit, because you don't know if that would have led to anything. Also, like, I think it's much easier to do that in the future and put all of our negative feelings and disappointments onto this one thing. And like, when does life ever work like that?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think in a weird way, it's kind of Jake being emo, right? And just like looking back on this thing and saying, no, none of this is important. This was the main thing that's important. And I know that contradicts a little bit of what I said earlier about, because I will get more into it later. I do believe he should have stayed in Jody, but also it's like, well, no, maybe everything has some importance, and you can't predict any of it either. Yeah, I think it's him like wallowing a little bit when he's doing that, and understandably so. I mean, he saw his paramour get gunned down by Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like, I feel like I've been really hard on Jake throughout the first 5 episodes, and I don't mean to be. He just like frustrates me. But I think the thing that I really like about him is I don't think he's selfish. I think he's just really thought that he was doing the right thing. And now that he realizes that doing the right thing does not mean he gets to be with Sadie, I think he's willing to make that sacrifice. And that's something that I really like about this character, even though it hurts. And I think he is allowed to feel upset about that. And I think another character, like a Percy Wetmore or something, would just like say, fuck it, I'm going to be with Sadie. I don't care if the world ends, and I do really like that. But I think, like you said, Dan, this is just him kind of being in his breakup phase. He's listening to his sad playlists, and he's putting his arm over his eyes, which is what we saw him do with Christy. So I think he's just kind of mourning this thing that he can't have anymore, and that he knows can't be a forever thing.
I'm just imagining Percy in the Jake role throughout 11/22, just a total depraved novel.
Oh my God. That's the Bogman version of it.
Yeah.
No, I think his interactions with the green card man kind of cement it, where the guy's like, look, dude, these threads are so complicated. Like, you're not going to go back and have this perfect, you can't recreate it. And I think that's like the reality check of like, listen, you broke up with this girl, you got to get over it, man. And I think the green card man kind of gives him that, I don't want to say pep talk, because it's horribly terrifying, the implications, but he realizes like, yeah, you can't. And he even sees like the strain that's putting on that guy. And it's like, do I really want to follow this path of just chasing it over and over again?
There was a cut chapter that I also was able to pull from the archives, thanks to Brian Burnett, where he actually meets the new green card man, Zach Lang. And he goes, I haven't known you for very long, but you know what the best part of my day is? The best part of my day is, and you walk up here, and I think that you're going to actually walk into, the time and reset the wheel. And that's the 5 seconds that I get every day or whatever. No, I'm just joking.
No, that's the
I'll fucking kill you.
Yeah.
I'll kill you.
I'll fucking kill you.
Wait, is that Vanilla Sky?
No, it's Good Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting.
Oh, Good Will Hunting.
Yeah.
Jesus, why am I?
Yeah. Anyway, I want to talk about this theme of what Jake represents now, because he says, he mentions how there's the man without a country, but he's a man without a time frame. And maybe it's a little too premature to get into this question now, but I think it's a good lingering one to kind of continue as we go from section to section. But how do you go on if you're Jake?
I know, because this goes back a little bit to, is it a bittersweet ending even? Because under the best circumstances, Sadie's 80? How old is she at the end of this? She's in her 80s, right?
Yeah. Somewhere 80-ish.
And I don't think he can tell her exactly who he is or where he's been. He'll sound like a fucking maniac. Because I was going to say at best, he has some kind of friendship with Sadie, but I don't think that's quite possible either. I don't think that can exist here. I think under the best circumstances, he has this dance with her, and that has to be enough for him. And he goes on with his life. And at this point, going back to the past, even though it's a past that no longer exists, he fell in love. He wrote a book. He changed the lives of some students. He still got to assassinate Oswald, even though that didn't happen in this current reality. What I'm saying is he's lived a life at this point, right? Which experientially is different than how he was at the beginning of the novel, even though he's kind of, for a while, in that same fugue state again. So my hope for him is that he's able to go on because he's recognized that he has lived a full life and that there is light at the end of the tunnel and that there are maybe more opportunities for him in this current reality which is in a way the same as the old reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it shows him he doesn't have to go back into the past to find happiness. Maybe he can find happiness in the current world he's in. That's the optimist in me saying that. So I think there is a way for him to go on.
Yeah, but he has, if you guys know the Cassandra's curse, like the Trojan in Greek mythology, she's gifted with foresight, but Apollo curses her that no one will believe her. So she can see the future, she can tell what's happening, but nobody will ever believe her. And that's sort of the situation Jake is in, where he knows what's going to happen, but realistically, is anyone ever going to believe him? He's just going to come across like a crazy person. And I don't know what he could say to anyone. I mean, what a whimsical, crazy tale, right? It's he's sort of doomed with this knowledge, but can't really share it with anyone. He can't have anyone else carry that burden, other than maybe the green card man recognizing briefly that, But
I think that's the key, though, because I think that's like his path to happiness has to be him learning to live with it, right? Like it has to be him not dwelling on it and just going, I'm just going to move forward with this. And once again, I totally see an argument for him going the other way too. Just like puts a gun in his mouth after dancing with Sadie.
He becomes like Sam Neill and in the Mouth of Madness, just like sitting there writing like numbers on his face and stuff. This is not reality. This is not my reality. Jen, how would you say this Jake that we see now, there's a lot of discussion of the new and old Jake, kind of like a new and old Pepsi, or is it Coke? No, new or old Coke, right? Yeah, that's what it is.
New Coke? Yeah.
I think it is New Coke.
Calling on my Back to the Future knowledge.
I'm thinking of in Stranger Things 3, they use New Coke.
Pepsi free, that's what I'm thinking.
Pepsi free, yeah.
Yeah. I'm so sorry, you're going to have to pay for that Pepsi.
Hey, it's Al. It's almost like Al's Diner. So the new Jake that we have here, the man without a time frame, how does he relate to the old Jake, especially as it relates to Christy, especially since you've been on that beam, if you will, this entire time?
Yeah, that has been like my major revelation of looking at this movie and this book. And I at first thought that Christy was going to be kind of just like a little like table setting or like dressing of the side, but I think that relationship actually plays a lot bigger role in Jake's motivations and what Jake learns, because I think like for what I want for Jake is I want him to go forward in the world, and I want him to learn that like you can't control other people, you can't like make sure everything's okay by just being there and trying to outthink everything that's going to happen. That's what codependency is. Like you have to live for yourself, and you have to learn how to just accept that things that happen are going to be good and bad, and there's not a whole lot you can do with it. Like your own circle of influence is a lot smaller than I think he thinks it is, but that's okay. So on page 762, when he's talking to Hosty, Hosty says, things happen for a reason, Hosty said solemnly. And for a moment, I felt like launching myself over the table and pummeling his flushed and fleshy face. Not because he was wrong, though. In my humble opinion, things do happen for a reason, but do we like the reason? Rarely. And I think that is the big thing that he has had to learn, is that things like you can't fix everything. That's not your responsibility. And when you try to meddle, or you try to make decisions for other people, or you try to get people into rehab before they're ready, it ends up just blowing up in your face. And then there are bigger problems. And the good news with that is it's not your responsibility, and you can just live your own life. And like when you see somebody beating his wife on the side, it's okay for you to step in then. You don't have to wait for this pivotal moment, or you don't have to do it just right because the weight of the world is resting on your shoulders. And I think I thought about him as a man without a time before, like he was born in the wrong generation. I remember we talked about that in the first episode. And I think in reading this book and talking about it as in depth as we have been, I don't think I think that anymore. I don't necessarily think that he was supposed to be back in Jody. I think Jody was a time of healing for him. And I think that he is really lucky that he got to live that life and he got those lessons, because the lesson is that happened and that was wonderful. And we can enjoy that, but time moves on and all things must pass. And now, there's something else that he can be going forward to. And he can take everything he learned from Sadie. He can take everything he learned in Jody about what he wants his life to actually be. And he can go forward and create that, because he was not trying to control anything in Jody. He was trying to control the larger things. And that's what allowed him to live this authentic life where he found this really strong relationship with a woman. So if he can go forward and find someone else who is healthy, like Sadie, and is able to kind of give him what he needs in a relationship too, then I think he'll be able to be happy,
What would you have done if the book ends where there's another chapter after the dance and he gets home and he's just like sitting there, he's pondering, he's making himself, maybe he's cracking open a bottle of root beer on his porch and someone moves in next door and it's like, oh, what's your name? Oh, I'm Sally. Something like that. And it's like the ending of 500 Days of Summer, where it's just like, oh, here's the replacement. Yeah. Here you go.
I'm Sally. I'm from New Mexico.
She's like, what have you been up to the past few years? Sally, you wouldn't believe me if I told you. Credits.
I thought you were about to say, what if he calls Christy? And I was like, don't call Christy. Don't call Christy.
She's like, I made a pound cake for you. I hope that's okay.
He's like, this is going to be a good summer. Drinks are fade.
No, instead of pound cake, she gives him a pineapple upside down cake.
Oh, yeah.
Close enough.
she stumbles and trips and he catches her, but then the pound cake falls and it's like, there'll be more slices for us, or some
but
shit
instead
like
of catching
that.
her boob, he catches her hoo-ha.
Yeah.
What?
Oh
What'd you say?
my God. Just
What'd you call it?
What'd you say?
doing
I
a
didn't say
podcast.
anything. I'm a lady.
Doing a podcast with Sammy is just the two of you.
That's
the most
true.
uncouth
She has
people in the
rotted my
world.
brain.
Yeah, she has. Let's talk a little bit about. Do we want to talk more about Jake? Is there, or do you want to just wait and kind of let it flesh out as we keep going?
Yeah, he'll be weaving in, I think, to a lot of these other questions we have coming up.
All right, because I don't want to leave out anything, because I know, Jen, you have a lot of thoughts. Is there other things right here in this section that you want to bring up?
I do, just kind of talking about King and Jake, not too much, because a lot of the conversation, I think, has to do with Sadie and has to do with the end. But I think this is an interesting character, considering King's recovery and and I don't want to speculate on where he is personally in his recovery journey, but just given the writing that we've seen, because this is not in the inside of an alcoholic's life. This is looking at it from the outside, and codependency is a big thing that people who are with alcoholics suffer from. It's like the alcoholic and the codependent, tale as old as time, So I think it's really interesting to see him kind of looking at the outside, and it's I wonder if he was sponsoring anyone, or he has seen somebody that he really wanted to help and not been able to help, because that's kind of what this book feels like compared to a book like The Shining, where it feels like he is really kind of crying out for help himself, So I think it's and if we look at Dr. Sleep, which I think it's just around the corner,
it is. Yeah.
I think a lot of these kind of themes start to kind of crystallize there, but I see a lot of long-term recovery in this book, because I think the ultimate lesson is really learning what you do and don't have control over, which is a huge part of sobriety and long-term recovery and being in relationships with people with addiction.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do we want to talk about Sadie in conjunction? We might as well. I mean, the other names I have here, it seems a little superfluous by comparison, and especially since we're having such a meaty discussion on Jake. I mean, if you want to dovetail into some of those thoughts with as it relates to Sadie, might as well. I mean, because I feel like these are the two fixtures of this section, even if she's only in the last 3 or 4 pages and as an 80-year-old.
Yeah.
What did you want to start there, or do you want to? Should we just save that for later?
Can I make just a observation on the audiobook Hosty?
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone listened to it.
I did.
For some reason, they do a Jimmy Stewart impression for Hosty, because he's like, "No, Jake, let me tell you, it's so strange. Like, it took me out of it. I was like,
stand-up sandwiches for you."
Yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like. Yeah.
There's a strange man in the book depository window.
It's like, now Hoover knows about your actions, friend.
All right, so I did want to bring up Hosty just as it relates to all the good treats that he tells and tricks Jake into. Now, Caffrey, I know that this is a question for you, because there's no sweet that gets away from your nose. So I wanted to ask, what are you taking from that salacious spread? We couldn't even go back to that page on page 773.
His name should be Hostess, like the snack.
Oh, yes.
Because,
Like Twinkies.
I have a very generic answer for this, but I'll tell you why. So here, I'll read it real quick. Okay, so 773, right?
Yeah.
All right, so here's okay. Then you might enjoy the Lone Star they're holding for you downstairs. There's a case of the stuff and a framed letter promising you a case of a month for the rest of your life. More champagne, too. I saw at least a dozen bottles. Everyone from the Dallas Chamber of Commerce to the City Board of Tourism sent them. You have a Zenith color television still in the carton, a solid gold signet ring with a picture of the president in it from Callaway's fine jewelry, a certificate for this shit's all boring. Here's what I'm talking about. And the food! People are bringing cakes, pies, casseroles, roasts of beef, that's funny, instead of just roast beef, barbecue chicken, and then, well, I'm going to save the last thing for pound cake later on.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Look, I'm going to go for something really simple. I just watched Frosty the Snowman, the old Rankin Bass cartoon. Not Jimmy Stewart, but Jimmy Durante is the narrator.
Oh.
And Frosty and the little girl have to go to the North Pole on a train, and the reason it works, because Frosty can't melt, is they go on a train that's holding frozen cakes and pies, like ice cream cakes. And there's something about the phrase cakes and pies that just makes my snout just twiddle a little bit and sends me squill into the trough.
Petit four cakes with like the really great icing on top, and they're so
like this
moist.
old school, because the 60s, right? Like these old icebox cakes that you'd see like Mr. Rogers teach you how to make. That's why I'm the cakes and pies. That's where I'm at for it.
Dan, cakes and pies.
And this is Dan, cakes and pie.
Yeah, so we know you would have stayed in the past. You're like, what would we call these cakes and pies?
Yeah,
wait a second.
More sugar, more saturated. But it's pure though. Like it's in many ways it could be worse for you, but it's also probably less preservatives.
All the preservatives are not there. Yeah,
yeah, you're getting that real
that
sugar.
Really weighs into Jake's decision. He's like, future, but preservatives.
But he's also probably like, hey, these things are going to go bad fast. I might as well get down there and get some of those cakes and pies.
Somebody's got to eat them.
Isn't there a Lisa Loeb album called Cake and Pie?
I do not know. I'm not a scholar on Loa, but
I know. Yeah, Cake and Pie. I know literally one song by her. It's probably the song everyone knows, but I've always liked that title, Cake and Pie. Sounds good.
I would say that if you're eating a ton of barbecue and then also some roast of beef, the cakes and pies at the end, your stomach's going to be probably in the same state as Oswald at that point. You're just
but if somebody's donated some sweatpants, then you're okay.
That's true. That is true. Jen, what are you taking from this? Are you going to take the key to the city?
Yeah. Okay, here's what I'm thinking. And it's the part that we haven't read yet.
Yeah.
Because in our second episode, Julia said that if she went back in time, she would fuck the Beatles, which I was like, well, why hadn't I ever thought about this? So I think I'm going to take this key to the city and I'm going to parlay it into meeting all the Beatles and having sex with all of them.
Okay. Borrow some of Jake's condoms, because the Beatles probably are crawling with diseases by that point. Just
there was nothing like that back in that time. It was fine.
It didn't exist. STDs were not a thing.
You think even by like November, probably 1960.
Dude, they were fucking when they were in Hamburg, back when Pete Best was still in the band. Let's be real. They had it from the beginning, the magic.
And this is before they were super famous, so I bet I could probably get in if I was like, hey, I saved the president.
Yeah,
you got the
Look
key.
at my cakes and pies. Here you
You're
go.
catching the dawn of birth control, but before major STDs. It's like a golden period. Like,
before the Summer of Love, like before it all goes dark with the hippie movement and
I know
everything.
Mike has former Playboy subscriber, as was I, just for the articles for real. But there was this magic time period where you're like, oh, I'll go to Playboy Mansion, birth control, and let's just let it all hang out, before the 70s.
Hey, you know what? Subscribe to Playboy for the Stephen King stories. Many of them premiere in Playboy.
Oh, that is
right.
true. Yeah. No, it definitely would have been a good time to have sex. I think that the idea of casseroles, though, no deal. I don't want casseroles.
You don't like casseroles?
No, I think they're
fine,
gross.
but yeah.
Casserole is like 2 out of 10 casseroles are great, and the rest of them are just like soppy.
I like a tuna
messes.
casserole, like a nice brick of tuna casserole. That's
Tuna
really
surprise.
good.
I would have
Like
grabbed
a hash brown casserole.
Go to grab Hosty by the collar and be like, get those fucking casseroles out of here.
Cakes
right
and
away,
pies,
sir.
yes. Casseroles, no.
Speaking of Hostess, do you think the government knew about Jake and his time traveling? I mean, they kind of let him go conveniently, right? Like, get the fuck out of here.
I think they had questions around him. Like, I think they knew there was something weird with this guy, right? Oh, you mean because they let him go and they just disappear and he's able to?
Yeah, just get out of here. Yeah.
I think they knew he had something else going on. I mean, it's weird they don't pursue it more, right? Just because you think they would want to know, but also you have to wonder, and I know King is not a conspiracy theorist, even though his wife is, that we find out in the afterward. I have to wonder if, like, they looked at him like, well, this guy might discover more of what we're doing, so best just to keep distance from him. I think, I don't know if they know all the details.
Yeah.
Fligger.
Yeah, it is strange. Hosty is a very weird character because he does kind of wrap everything up in a nice little bow. I think as kind of like a spook, he's privy to a lot of information that we don't know about, right? I mean, there could be aliens for all we know that this guy knows about. But it is weird that he gets a sense from Jake, but lets him go. That to me, that's the part that's kind of unbelievable because I think they would like detain him.
Oh, 100%.
Be like, we're going to really pump you for this information. But instead, it's almost one of those like, I'm going to look the other way and let you go. And it just seems kind of out of character for him. But then again, he is like a Kennedy supporter. So maybe there's somewhere deep down in his heart. He says he voted for Kennedy, unlike most of the other guys in the agency. So I don't know. He is like, especially for a character that gets introduced so late, he remains kind of a mystery to me.
Yeah. He's the one that did they say that he was the one that shoots Martin Luther King, right?
It's like cigarette smoking man, basically.
Yeah. That's kind of what I got the inference from is that like, it's just that he has like been in multiple places. I do love the staring thing. Like, all right, I'm going to look in your eyes. And it's like the Larry David, like, okay. Okay.
Oh, yeah. I'm getting
Yeah. Jen, go for it.
Well, my question is, I was thinking about, in Firestarter when somebody sees something Charlie does and they like kidnap him and like give him this like delusional drug that makes him like relive everything. So I wonder if this is a world where the shop exists also and if they have any kind of information about any of this. Because surely there's somebody connected with the CIA in some time period down the line or before that knows about these rabbit holes. Maybe they're not part of the CIA, but they're involved in it or they have been or something. Like somebody else knows about this. It can't be Jake is the only human being that understands this whole connected thing. But I do think it does kind of wrap it up a little bit handily. It's like, no, we want you to get out of town. We want you to do what's best for the story ending, And he's just like, oh, okay. Growling all his cakes and pies as he hits the road,
Well, you could definitely, it definitely feels a little convenient. I messed up before, though. It's not Hosty that goes and kills MLK. It's Dwight Hawley.
Oh.
That mentioned it. So I thought that was when I was reading that first, I was like, oh, wow, if it was like Hosty that did that, and then at the end it'd be like that guy had far more darker implications behind those eyes. But no, I guess not. So that's a good question about the shop, though, because, we'll get into KD a little bit, or that's King's Dominion for all you out there, about just how it relates to another story outside of the King Dominion, if you think about it. But I guess it kind of goes back to what you all discussed on the Dark Tower series last year. It was just that King's relationship to government institutions and how they do feel a little sort of blind to like some of the things that are happening in King's Dominion. Like you guys talked about that in like books, like especially in book 7, right? Where like it kind of feels like those are, and especially as it relates in Under the Dome, of just how like these institutions are largely ineffectual, right? I mean, that's kind of where he lands at. Isn't that the case that you guys when you were discussing last year? Fligger?
Yeah, I mean, when we talked about Dark Tower 7, which, yeah, of course, Ty was slightly before Under the Dome, but then also coming off of, I can't remember, was Dark Tower 7 before Buick 8? Either way, Buick 8, Under the Dome, Dark Tower 7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it's just, I mean, and maybe not that they're like completely ineffectual altogether, but that you can't put your hope in them, right? I mean, and you see that in shows like The Wire and everything else. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it speaks to the theme of this book, which is that the true joy, where the money is, it's in humanity, it's in intimacy, it's in relationships, which I think just by nature of what they are, institutions can't sustain. I mean, those individual things happen within the institutions, but as a whole and what they're supposed to define, I don't think they can. And I think, too, part of what we talked about is that things get so convoluted in institutions that it's almost impossible to keep track of it. And you start to even forget why they even existed in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing, and that anything the institutions do right is just sort of like, broken clock is right twice a day sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I think Jen brings up interesting implications, though, of the FBI that I had not thought about, where it's like, yeah, if you're collecting all this data, they might be aware of some of these time slips. They might see some of this like bizarre, almost alien like occurrences, and they might, be keeping record of it. So there's a lot that they don't reveal. But I think it's interesting too that Jake can handle this guy who, the FBI could ruin your life if they really wanted to. It's like the Soviet Red Scare, right? They really could take you down. But he goes there with the confidence of a man from 2011, and he's like, no, I can, I'm going to stand up for myself. I'm not going to reveal too much. But there is something that Hosty is picking up, and he might be one of those agents that, even if the institution is sort of bumbling, he might be one of the really smart ones that's a little more aware and a little more keen. And yeah, it's just, the more I think about it, the more he seems out of place. But I do like his character. It seems very odd.
I do like you almost expect us to see him get more sinister, and I like that he doesn't, I like that we don't find out fully, how much does he know? And he does Jake a solid, at the end of the day.
And even for the time period where he's like, there's a lot of, we'll save it for pound cake, but there's a lot of young women out there that love a hero. And you're like, wow, that's very sophisticated for a guy in the 60s to be speaking like that.
My question is, do we think that he is kind of dumb and is fooled by Jake, or do we think that he sees this and is kind of letting Jake slide because he knows there are bigger implications?
I think the latter.
Yeah, I think the latter.
He just seems too savvy to be naive like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think he also realizes that they, the more that they let this get swept under the rug, the less, guff they're going to have to deal with. If they continue to turn this into a hero story, then there's probably less questions as to, well, how did this happen?
Yeah.
They're definitely going to keep an eye on him. Like, I'm sure they have like a whole, outline of like, all right, so we're going to be spying on this guy for the rest of his life, right?
Yeah.
See where he goes.
And they don't think that he's going to be able to just disappear into thin air.
Which I did love in the alternate universe, how you find out that he becomes this mythic man in the same way that the conspiracy, the lone gunman has that sort of hold over America.
Yeah, it's like the country needs something like that. I
thought it was actually really eerie the way that comes to fruition. But more on that what if in a second. Let's talk about the icons that pop up. JFK, Jackie O. I think King's pretty smart in being spare with these two. Although I have one little thing. But Caffrey, go for it. What do you think?
So I actually really like both the phone conversations. I think anything more than that would have been silly. I was wondering though. It's interesting because I feel, and you all talked about this a lot in the first episode, I feel like part of King's obsession with JFK, like a lot of people his age's obsession with JFK, and his reluctance to consider anything except the lone gunman theory, I think it comes from this kind of reverence of JFK, right? Like people, it's the whole Camelot thing. People from his generation love him. And what's interesting to me is that when Jake goes to the alternate reality where it's horrible, I feel like King doesn't depict him as being the ideal president. I mean, he kind of bungles Vietnam. He bungles the civil rights movement, right? I'm not misinterpreting that, right? Because he even says, he couldn't handle the civil rights movement like Johnson did. And that was really interesting to me because I always feel like King looks at JFK as this idealized kind of guy. And I like that in the end, he actually makes him a pretty flawed president. I don't know if any of y'all, if that resonated with you or if I'm maybe misinterpreting that. But yeah, that was something that really set. I know that's not like the scene on the phone with him, but I really like what we find out about JFK after that. Yeah.
Yeah, because he worked with Doris Kearns Goodwin to come up with all these alternate,
Oh,
realities
that's
and
awesome.
stuff.
I love that.
And I really would love to speak to her about this, because I think that's I had the same thought, Dan. It's just like, wow, that is kind of a, if anything, that's the biggest twist, right?
Yeah,
Of this book.
the fact that he fucks up Vietnam in the civil rights movie, like that. I mean, that paints him in a pretty bad light. So that was very interesting to me. And who knows? Maybe Doris was like, "Hey, King, I know you love the guy, but like we need to be a little bit more realistic with this." Yeah, Jen, what were you going to say about it?
Yeah, it reminds me of like the Dark Knight thing, is like you either live long enough to become the villain or you die as a hero. And I think that this just speaks to me as like King is, a man who's seen a lot. He's seen, like, he's not writing this in his 20s, and he, I think, has a kind of healthy perspective, because you do see it a little bit in this phone call, like he's got this air of like, oh, nothing bad can happen to me. I can do whatever I want. I'm like this golden child. And, he doesn't realize that what history was actually supposed to be, whereas Jackie feels like she really believes that she almost lost her husband in a way that he doesn't quite understand. So I think there's that hubris that's missing in this phone call that leads to like, JFK would have turned out to be like a typical politician, instead of this kind of hero worship kind of guy that really a lot of that exists because he was assassinated,
Well, that goes into, and I'm sure Flieger, you're going to be able to digress a lot on this, is just what the death represents versus what the person represents. And a lot of that does come into the Dark Knight. Like thinking of even just like the idea of Batman as a symbol, or like Harvey Dent as a symbol. Like that's the same way of JFK. Like it's not that he's ineffectual. It's just that he's
a politician. How much can he really do?
Exactly. And like they talk about how like Johnson was going to be the one that was able to whip up a lot of the social, movements. And a lot of that came in as a reaction to his death. And I know King, the one thing I will say that King does give JFK here, and I wonder if it's to kind of pittance to like pay with the sins of what they've been saying about these alternate history. But like when he discusses how like he fails in the court and he's just like, oh, the white power has taken over, has burned the country. I need to find the quote again, but it's somewhere in the rundown that Harry gives. But it's a really dark fucking scene. And it's talking about how Kenny's just basically being politically assassinated in the Supreme Court. Just like everyone, they basically talking about how white power will take over. But so I think it's the icon that stands tallest. But Flieger, I know you're obsessed with this type of theme, because I feel like we've talked about this all the time. But
yeah, no, I think I like that you picked the word icon too, because I think it's the what if is what people think of Kennedy. Like, it was this time of hope, young people in the White House, Camelot. Oh, if only he had a few more years, right? So it's people project their own idea of like, he would have done X, Y, Z, but it's like you guys are saying, he's still a typical politician in a way. He's just a symbol though. So, and even, like I've read some of the Robert Caro, the Power Broker, the LBJ, like life-spanning biography. And yeah, he got civil rights passed, but it was in a way that only like LBJ could do, because he was like an awful person and just like forced his will. Whereas Kennedy had a much softer image, right? And people were, I think they really gravitate toward the hope. And I'm reminded again of like the Obama years of just like that feeling that young people were like, wow, this is, finally, like we get this moment. And I think it's hard to look back on JFK and not think like, if only he had survived, none of this bad stuff would happen. And I actually think it's cool that King, when Jake goes to the future, you're like, no, it didn't really change it that much. Right. And if you remove the assassination, it kind of gets rid of some of that mystique that we associate with him. So I thought that was a really interesting choice, because I remember when I first read it, I was hoping that when he came to the future that society would be like, futuristic, utopia.
Like the Jetsons?
Yeah, like floating homes and whatnot and robot maids. But instead, you're like, man, it's even worse. And I think it goes that butterfly effect that they've been talking about the whole time, where it's like, yeah, you have no idea what kind of change you're going to create. And it's too much for one man. And that's why I think the green card man, for example, just sitting there and being like, look at this guy's brain get scrambled by trying to keep track of all these implications. And Jake is he's only made the voyage, I think, three times at this point?
Yeah. Well, and if you're thinking about like kind of the whole theme of the novel too, I feel like Jake, we could look at him as kind of a parallel figure to JFK too. Because when you were talking about that, I was thinking about like Ruth Bader Ginsburg and how we talked when she died, like a lot of political things changed. And there's that like, we look back and we say, oh, we should have done this different. And the issue is not necessarily what one person does. It's the fact that we are all pinning our hopes and our dreams on one person. You know, like JFK could not have solved all of these problems because he's one person. He could have done a lot, but it takes all of us to kind of pitch in and make the world better. And I think that's kind of what Jake learns too, is that I cannot save the future by being one person and stopping one moment in time. It takes all of us. It takes us stepping in when we see something on the street. It takes us like voting every time. It takes us like helping. Like if you believe in JFK, then don't just vote. Help him, or like help elect a Congress that will pass stuff, you know, or like call your senator and tell him what you actually want to see. Like don't let it all rest on one man, because when it does, then those watershed moments change everything so dramatically. You know?
It's the same with Obama, right? Now, look, I vote for Obama, love Obama. It's not like I'm going to get out now. But no, I mean, it was such a cool thing, right? I mean, a bunch of us here lived in Chicago when he got elected. It did feel like this magical time. And during his presidency, I weirdly look at that period as like my halcyon days. Like, oh, I was in my 20s. I was writing for a living. I got married, all this stuff. Now, all those good things in my life, that all came from me and the people around me, not from Obama. It just happened to sync up with a politician who I happen to like. And now it's interesting because looking at his presidency now and looking at where the world is now, I still like Obama, but I can definitely look at him a lot more critically, especially, in issues like immigration and war and things I won't get into here. But the point being that when Trump got elected, and don't worry, listeners, this isn't me just going on Trump jokes all the time.
Here we go.
No, but when Trump got elected, I remember all of a sudden, and I'm saying this as a white person, it did feel like this. Well, wait, how did this happen? How was all this going on? We just had these years of prosperity. And it's like, no, dipshit, this was always going on. You know, like this was all shit that was going on in the underbelly of America that's now coming out to the surface. And I think it applies here because the point isn't that, no, things were shitty all along. That it goes back to institutions, right? It's like, no matter what time period you're in, people are going to have grievances. Problems are going to exist. And those aren't necessarily being kept at bay by the politician we have in the office. I think sometimes things just sync up that way. And so, it was a good reminder of that. And I just love that King went that route instead of something else.
And I think that if you take the famous quote and apply it to Jake, the ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Whoa. I feel like JFK's...
He's trying to make the effort here, right? But I think he's also proving that it's just like a platitude. There's not a whole lot you can do. I mean, he obviously affects the future in a great many ways, but not in the way he tries to. It's I think it's just like it goes to that, one man can change the world, but not in the ways that he means to. It's just it's too great a task. It's too much going on for even like the average human brain to comprehend. It's just mind blowing.
Yeah.
Well, we have a few other faces, but I think I want to save Zach Lang, aka the Green Card Man, for King's Dominion, because I want to lean on the Dans here for some theories that may skew into Room 237. So
make it make sense.
I think he's Roland, pretty much.
Yeah, he could be. Well, let's save it. Let's save it.
He's Roland. Yeah.
The only two we have left is Harry Dunning, which the only note I have here is that I just think it's a perfect bookend to the journey to kind of be like, oh yeah, remember him? You know, this is the one that started this whole emotional strain. Although I could see people arguing it's like a little too perfunctory, like, oh, of course you're going to run into this guy in the midst of this chaos wasteland.
Yeah. I love it. I think he earns it. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on Mr. Dunning's return?
It is a little convenient, but I think I agree with Caffrey. He earned it.
Yeah. It's a book about cycles and about time, right? So it just makes and once again, we do know that time is kind of operating as a bit of its own character, a bit of its own force here. So is this because Jake went back and stopped fucking with time because he restored the balance in a weird way? Is that time making the two run into each other? And maybe not, but I think
the harmonics work, even not just going in the past, but even in the present day. You're like, no, there's still some kind of sync up that's happening here.
Yeah. It's almost like they're like, even though they're on their last breath, or maybe they're not even, I feel like they've hit their ceiling and they're just basically corpses, but they're still doing the work. Those yellow card, green card men, they're like, all right, let's try to make some sense of that. Even if they're just fucking gasping and reaching for straws. Jen, do you have some thoughts there?
I do. Yeah, I do love that we have the Harry Dunning bookend. I think that because we can actually see what was better. And, you know, I don't know if there's really an argument about which version of a life is better than any other, but like he sees what the long-term cost of his action has been compared to the long-term cost of his inaction, you know? And so, you know, there's this moment where he's looking at this picture of them on the wall. Here's Troy, and this is on page 819. Here's Troy and Arthur, also known as Tugga, and here's you with your mother's arm around you. I smiled, just the way God planned it. If only it could stay that way, if only. And it's just this really interesting, I think, look at like Jake trying to step in. And I mean, we could make an argument that he is trying to play God in this way. He is trying to save people that were not intended to be saved, you know, or maybe like the quantum leap kind of thing. But it's interesting. It's so, I like seeing this perspective because, you know, he did have these happy years as a child, and then Jake saved him from this horrific incident, but at what cost? And maybe this can lead into us talking about Sadie, but like, if you look at it as a trade-off, you know, whose lives are worth saving and whose aren't? And is it just people that you happen to know? Like, he loves Sadie and he cares about Harry Dunning. So why are their lives more valuable than the rest of the world? And I really like that. I think Jake understands that, you know, he understands that there is a cost and he's willing to make that sacrifice for the rest of humanity, you know?
Well, I think it's good to dovetail into Sadie also here, because one of the questions I had in going back, and this is that, you know, he's praying so much that, you know, if he can't help her because he has this sort of, you know, savior complex in a way. He does. Towards the end, he certainly does have the savior. He's Nucky Thompson in Boardwalk Empire, if you really want to get into it. Maybe not that depraved, but certainly in that realm. But, you know, he ultimately learns that, no, she's fine without him. I mean...
Yeah,
I mean, her
it turned
life,
out pretty much the
her
same.
life
gun
was
punch.
better without it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously.
Right. Well, and
Or
that's
pound
a
cake. What
huge
do you want?
lesson for him, too, is that, like, you know, just because you think you know what's better for somebody else doesn't mean it actually is. And where is that coming from? And I think a lot of it is, sorry, I'm getting so animated, I'm like bumping my microphone. Like, a lot of that is coming from Christy. And I mean, I think the failure of that relationship really informed him not wanting to lose this, wanting to help her solve her problems. And I don't think he's like overbearing and he's like in doing anything that I would classify as wrong, but just this, I hope now he could step back and say, well, yeah, her life turned out okay without me. And maybe I should concentrate more on my own life instead of trying to, you know, save and be the strong, supportive person for everybody else. Maybe I can be that for myself. She can be like Kelly on 90210 and pick himself for a while.
Or he becomes like Mark Wahlberg and just is like, I know what's best for you. And he shows up at the door. And I'm talking about fear Mark Wahlberg, but not the real life Mark
Sorry,
Wahlberg.
I'm just beating on my chest.
9/11 Mark Wahlberg.
No, real life Mark
I like to
Wahlberg would be
sweet
like,
tears.
like, your next answer is religion.
He starts punching his chest and you
Christianity. I'm going to go back and make Harvey Oswald a Christian.
Yeah,
Stop.
you know, that'll stop the world.
No, I popped both your cherries.
Alsburgers, more like Wahlburgers.
Oh, there we go.
Do we want to discuss? I mean, I have some lingering questions about the ending, and I think that can kind of tie into Sadie a little bit,
Yeah,
because
that's
we
it.
only get a little snippet here. But
I mean, it's
Jen,
pretty much
I know-
the last scene in the book. That's really all we see of her in this section.
yeah, and I don't want to leave out any notes that you had, Jen, on Sadie also. So please,
I'll weave them in. Also,
Okay,
we're going to
cool,
do a
cool.
whole character corner on her.
We
too,
are.
so.
We are. That's true.
But most of my notes about Sadie are how she applies to Jake, you
Okay.
know? Because, yeah, she's really not a presence in this part of the story.
Okay, so then based on everything we discussed, how do you read this ending? Is it tragic or happy?
I think it's happy. I mean, I think it is bittersweet and it makes me sad, but it kind of is one of like my overall theory. When people talk about Stephen King endings and they talk about how bad it is, it really frustrates me because it's like, no, it's just not the ending that you wanted. It's not the happy ending. And a lot of the times happy endings just have to do with where you end the story, you know? And my theory, this is my nihilism coming out, but like happy endings aren't real because everybody dies, everything is going to end. And so it's the happy moments. And I think that's ultimately what this book is about. So I think that it is happy because Jake got to experience this. He got this life he wouldn't ordinarily have had. I hope, like I said earlier, he can take these lessons and live a happier life down the road. And I'm a little curious, and I want to talk about this when we get into all the theory and everything. I'm a little curious about what happened to that version of Sadie and Jody that he did go back and like what's going on with them on the rest of the thread. But like, this is the best case healing scenario for Jake. Like he got to like go back in time and experience this great, powerful thing in a way that actually didn't affect the rest of his life. And now he can come back as a changed man, hopefully a better man with a lot more perspective on life. And maybe he can find his next Jody down the road or his next Sadie or both, you know?
Or both. Yeah.
Yeah.
Figure.
It's like, I mean, the traditional, like the hero's journey, part of the Act 3 unification is like you become a master of two worlds. And that's literally what Jake has become, right? He's George and Jake. He's done both and he's changed for it. So I don't know if it's like happy or sad. I think it just is. And I think it's him making peace with that, where he's like, if only I can go back one more time, if only I could do this one. But I think it's him realizing like it's never going to be the same. So I think just him having that, seeing Sadie and being like, she did live a good life, and just kind of like, let's just leave it as it is, and let's just have this dance and how we danced, and we could both take something from it. It's going to be a bittersweetness there, right? Because you want them to start all over again, but he realizes like it's never going to be the same.
Well, and you have to look at Sadie's life too, because we're talking about happy ending through the eyes of Jake, right? Through the eyes of Sadie, she's citizen of the century. Yeah, she had this traumatic thing happen to her when she was younger, but from everything we can see, she persevered and had this amazing, fulfilling life. And I think it's kind of telling that Jake's like, oh, I hope she found another man who got rid of the broomstick. And it's like, well, she probably did. Like, it feels kind of presumptuous. Like, I hope she was able to get over me and find this other person. I'm like, I'm pretty sure she did. I'm sure she's had sex by this point, So, like, I think in a weird way, I wonder if he's projecting some of his disappointment or trepidation about her having a happy ending onto her because he is still sorting out his feelings about his own ending. Like, I think to me, like, King does a lot of work here to show, no, Sadie's life turned out kind of awesome, right? And that to me makes it a happy ending.
Yeah. Jen.
Well, and my question is, and it kind of maybe a life question too, is like, do you think Jake and Sadie are actually soulmates, or do you think that they just happened to meet each other and got what they need for a little bit of time?
On a certain timeline, they are soulmates, but I don't know that it speaks to all timelines, right? Because it seems like she did live a pretty nice life here without him, and she doesn't seem unfulfilled at all. Like, if anything, she seems very content.
Yeah.
But I would argue, though, that their soulmateness transcends timelines, because I think she picks up on something in that final moment. I'm not saying that she needs to have him to be happy. And I think I know a lot of people think, oh, I only have one person I could be happy with. I think we probably all have like several people we could be, depending on how it works out. But don't you guys think that she's registering something between them? Otherwise, I don't think she would have danced with him as an older lady. I think there's something, the residue, right? Is that what the green card man says?
The residue is certainly there.
I think she picks up on that, which maybe hints that they are soulmates, or maybe it's just from the time they were together. But I don't know. I like to think that their love transcends time, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to result in a romance in this time period. I mean, I don't think it would. That would be weird,
I think of like when he first goes back and then comes to Al's diner and he's like, yeah, I kind of remember some of that stuff. I think anyone that's involved in this timeline is going to have some residue effect. So I think the fact that she, it's almost like deja vu, like she picks up on something, but I don't know. I guess beyond just like the symbol of it, I don't know that, she's like, oh yeah, in another life, I knew this guy. It's like, she could never even comprehend that. She probably doesn't even know time travel exists, right? But I think there's that sweetness that King puts in where Jake could be explaining to her like, no, this is what happens. But instead he just kind of lets it linger. Let's just enjoy this dance. And, I think it's a very beautiful ending for the book.
One of the metaphors for time here is the strings, the guitar strings or the strings itself. And I just imagine that these strings act as deja vu for a lot of these characters, this strange, surreal sense of deja vu where maybe one string, the, 187th, the 100 millionth string on their entire, their file, for lack of a better word, or their own guitar is being plucked and they're hearing it, but it's maybe, it depends on just how closer it is or not. But all of that informs my next question, which is what happens literally at the end of this dance? Like right when it's over, what do you think's in your head? What do you think's going to happen? You think Jake's going to be like, "Hey, you want to get a drink?"
Yeah.
Or do you think
Sadie calls the cops.
Yeah.
Fuck is this guy? I mean, I think he just walks away. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think they can. I don't think he can go beyond that because, like you said, how would he explain any of this? I think it just has to be this weird ethereal moment. Two ships in the night kind
Just
of thing.
picture him explaining it. And yeah, she's like, all right, get him out of here. Like, it's like, damn, Sadie, you're so fit.
It could be like a Harrison Ford, Calista Flockhart thing, Like, she's I think they're a 45 age difference at least in this book they are, Sadie and Jake.
Yeah, that's a gendered thing, right? Because I feel like we don't bat an eye when it's an older man and younger woman,
true.
but
Jack Nicholson, who's he with right now?
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know if he's with all the voices in his head right now.
Well, to be fair, actually, the Calista Flockhart and Harrison Ford, it's only 21 years of difference, so I can't do that.
How old is Jake? Jake's like our age, right? How old is he?
He's 40. He'd be 42
but then
now.
He's aged 5 years, right?
This is 42.
Yeah.
Sadie's at least 80. Look, I'm not saying it can't happen. But yeah, Jen, where are you?
That is prime podcasting age. So I bet he starts podcast about all of this and he just calls it fanfic,
It's like, could I be a hero? Of course. Stay tuned for the Jake Chronicles. Like crappy.
Hey, I would listen to it.
But first, from BetterHelp.
He sells some mattresses.
Hey, sponsor.
I want to make all these like fuck fest weekend, like pound cake extravaganza. But yeah, I think he just walks away. And I think both of them, like he looks at her life that she's able to have a happy life without him. And maybe he can have a happy life without her, and they can always have the memories.
It would be funny if, once again, I haven't watched the show, but if the show ends like this and then like mid credits, they just cut to, it's like an American Pie sequel. They just cut to the car and you just like see it shaking like, oh, Jake.
It's like Sadie's hand on the window and smearing down.
Yeah. Pound cake, just like guys smearing pound cake all down the wiper. Yeah.
Or maybe it's like he the dance ends and they're both looking at each other and he's just like, they still got Candlewood bungalows around here. She's just like,
say, do you have any hip replacements?
Not
recently?
for spoilers,
Okay.
but I want you to imagine James Franco's face, Dan, in that final scene when he's like, okay,
Oh
Sadie.
God, yeah.
And
I really know.
James Franco and Jessica Tandy.
yeah.
Oh God. That's not gross. I shouldn't say. Who cares? Love is love, right? Why am I saying that?
Love wins.
I'm trying to think of
I just
a
want him to stay
relationship
away
in
from her,
Hollywood.
though.
Like I know Michael Douglas is 79, Catherine Zeta-Jones is 54.
I know 40 something years is. I mean, not that it doesn't happen. I mean, I guess like Anna Nicole Smith and that old oil baron or whoever she married.
Yeah,
maybe,
that's
but-
a weird example.
yeah. Sorry.
the-
Yeah.
Aaron, the kick-ass kid, Aaron Taylor
That's
Johnson.
They're only
He's
20
married
though
to the
too.
director of that Beatles movie that he was in.
Oh, yeah. But he dated Barbara Hershey, too, for a while, I think.
He likes an experienced woman.
He
clearly.
does. Hey, we know what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean but anyway, yeah, I think I do wonder like at the end, it's like, cause you never know. It's obviously it's like sentimental ending, but
we
if I'm
just
Jake,
ruined.
we absolutely just trashed it with our filth.
Sorry, Stephen King.
Are you going to explain any more if you're Jake? Or how would you explain? Like, actually, let me just reconfigure this question. What would you do? You're going down there, you're at Jody, you see her at the dance floor. What's your move?
I think it's a good button on they started dancing and then they end dancing.
Yeah, but what are you going to do? I want to know what's your move? Are you going to walk up there and be like, hey, look, I know you, and then all of a sudden they're taking you away, or what's
I
the
would
deal?
be tempted to prove that I was from the future or that I knew, intimate knowledge. I'd be like, here, but that's not the right thing to do. Like, I think King is more mature than I am because I would be going back being like, Sadie, we had this other light. And again, they would institutionalize me. They would be like, this guy's off his rocker. I think the maturity of what Jake has taken and seeing that he wanted to save the future, right? He wanted to prevent Vietnam. But now he's with her in the future and her life has been saved. She was always doomed when she was around him, right? She died in his version. So for her to have lived a good life, in a way, he did kind of save her by not going back and resetting over and over again. She did leave a good life. And I think that's what he can take away from it.
Yeah, I would like to think that I would do what Jake does, but I'm an over talker and an over explainer. I think I would just be like, hey, see, and I would be apologizing the whole time, and be like, sorry to bug you, but I know this is so weird, but we actually, yeah, and I think I would just freak her out by the end of it.
Jen.
Well, it's interesting because like one of the quotes that I pulled that I didn't really know where it would go is like she talks about being inspired by the Kennedy assassination, and that's what made her want to go into politics. So like, how many people has she helped and saved by him just kind of allowing this awful thing to happen? It's like even the darkest things can have great outcomes, you know, if you put in the work to make them mean something. And I think that is the gift that he has given her, and that is how he saved her, not only her, but everyone else she's affected in these like 40 years. And I think like if I want to make dumb jokes about what I would do if I met her on the dance floor, but like it would be interesting if he just kind of gave her the manuscript and was like, here, you know, this is what I wrote about you. You can choose to do whatever you want with this, you know. Hopefully he would make a copy, but like I think there's enough detail in there given what we've read that if she read the whole thing, she would believe it. And I think that would maybe be sweet. Or like, who is this psycho and how long has he been watching me?
There's this kind of Chekhov's gun situation with, you know, the photo he cuts out in the newspaper. And I did wonder, like,
oh, what if he just
could you have
showed it to her?
just given it to her, you know, and like been like, hey, and then that's kind of it reminds me of like a scene from The Girl Next Door starring Emile Hirsch and Alicia Cuthbert and also Paul Dano, who played the Riddler in the last Batman movie. You know, he walks up to the dance floor and he's like, you're better than this or something like that. And then gives her, I can't remember what he gives her, but then just walks away. It's like, sometimes actions speak a little louder than words. I think in this case, probably just send her into like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah,
and
no,
like,
I think that would be cool.
I think it would be not good. But I did wonder,
Ruin our
like,
whole day.
there's no photos. You don't have any photos together. You know, like there seems to be an era of like you'd have photos in the wallet at least. Mm-hmm. No photos of the two of them.
It reminds me, honestly, the Simpsons, Leonard Nimoy, but it's like, well, my work here is done. And it's like, we didn't do anything. But that's how like he would be perceived. It's just like, what are you talking about? Like, I just don't think it could be. I mean, imagine right now someone walks up to you and is like, hey, by the way, we lived a life together and I'm from the future and I time travel at will. You'd be like, it's just like, you couldn't even comprehend it. You couldn't even begin
I'd be like,
to
let's
believe
beat.
Well, and that would be for
Let's get out
him
of
too. You know, like that would be for Jake. Sadie gets nothing out of that, you know? And so I think part of what he has learned through this whole journey is like, I can live without her knowing this, you know, because I know it.
But okay, so then that's my penultimate question here is, would this bring Jake closure or fuel his madness?
Closure. That's what I'm hoping.
Closure.
I'm hoping he's going to some CODA meetings. He's gonna date a nice young girl or nice age appropriate girl, and have lots of like wholesome pound cake and make babies.
There's a part of him that's like, it could make him such a pretentious person where it's like, oh, you don't know? You had to be there. It's just like he needs to find almost like a fellow time traveler so he can commiserate. Yeah. I mean, there are other time slips out there.
We keep talking to him about Batman, and like, is Batman just he just?
Well, that's why Batman dates Catwoman, because they can relate on some level. Jake needs a fellow time traveler.
I'm going to be honest. I think this is a Notebook situation. I think he's going to be going through
murder-suicide,
girl after girl. And you know those scenes in like Ryan Gosling's like dating like the other girls, and they're just like standing there in the doorway and like, what's wrong? What am I not? Who am I not? And she's, you know, he just keeps thinking about Rachel McAdams.
I've never seen a Notebook.
I've never seen it either.
Me too. Yeah.
Oh, well, Jen, you've seen it, right?
I've seen it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I hear it's good.
You know,
I hear for what it is.
It's a
it
solid
is good,
movie.
and I hate rom-coms.
But they both, the point is that he goes his whole life trying to chase other, you know, girls because he's still hung up on Rachel McAdams and it doesn't work. And I'm wondering, the cynic in me is like, no, I'm going to always think of Sadie. Every girl, every relationship is always going to measure up to this one thing, which in turn would sort of drive you fucking crazy. You know, this thing that technically doesn't exist, but does in this plane of existence that only you know of. It's almost like why we don't know the meaning of life.
But I don't think that's unique to Jake. I think that's like a human condition in a way, right? It's not, he just happened to find his love while time traveling. I think that happens in everyday life.
True.
I always think of like that Brian Cox from Adaptation when it's like, what do you mean nothing happens? Like, you know,
it happens every day.
Someone falls in love. Someone murders someone on the steps of a church. And I think that stuff is going on all the time. It just so happens that this happened in a time travel context, you know?
Yeah. Jen.
Can he become the next green card man?
Oh, God.
I think he.
I think he prevents him. I think, man, y'all aren't giving Jake enough credit. He makes the decision to undo it and close the loop. I think had he stayed in the nuclear future, he probably would have become the next green card man. But I don't think he does here.
Well, maybe that I'll understand a little bit more of that when we talk about the green card man, because I'm still not quite sure what all of that is. But what if he does get pulled into Midworld and he's just like,
yeah, the series kind of elaborates a little bit more on the position. But yeah, I think he sees him as a cautionary tale. And I think Green Card Man does not look happy. And I think Jake is like, that could easily become me. So I think closing the loop consciously, like, I think Jake does the heroic thing and the good thing and the right thing in his decision, even if it pains him.
I think you're dead wrong. I think drinking and killing myself and smoking some of that Chiba that's not marijuana, but also seemingly feels like the headache medicine from that era. I don't know. It sounds like a good life to me.
Yeah, or you could start a cult.
It's totally a green card cult. Come join me. Wear a cool hat. Last question. Is this King's best ending?
Yes.
Yes.
I can't think of a better one. I think it's his perfect ending. It's what I point people to if they say, King can't end his books. I'm like, then you have not read 11/22/63. Exactly. I don't even know what comes close to ending. I mean, there's a lot of King endings I like, but
I got one.
Pet Sematary maybe feels appropriate, but that's like more of an unnerving ending. Nah, it's 11/22 for me. I can't think of what comes close. Yeah.
I think, Flieger, you first. What do you think?
Yeah, it's hard. I'm trying to think of like the other endings because I actually enjoy a lot of the endings.
I do too. I think the whole myth of him with the ending thing is bullshit. I've said
I think he's like, I think it's from The Stand because there's that one weird thing in the ending that I don't like either, but I think it's
still a great ending.
Still an awesome ending.
The guy's also written like 80 some odd books, exactly, right? So you can pick and choose whatever you want, but I think overall,
it's not even counting short stories. Yeah,
I think he ends his books really well for the most part.
Yeah, I think this one though is like there's a real like beautiful like parting is such sweet sorrow kind of like you leave and you're like, man. You can't help but feel for Jake, and it really like I love the love story in this, and I think it's probably like it's the best ending that could be for this, and it's beautiful. It's his
Damien Chazelle ending. If you've seen La La Land, this is certainly in that same vein. The only ending I'd throw that I think could come up to it and go toe to toe is the inverse of this book, is the Dead Zone. The ending of the Dead Zone is just flawless. It's flawless. Yeah. And that's the only one I'm dying to actually go back. I can't do this because I have so many other books I want to read before we start season 8. But like, I really want to go back and read The Dead Zone now after just reading this. Mm-hmm. But Jen, you think I feel like you've got a contender here.
Well, I thought you were going to say The Green Mile because we talked about how great the ending of The Green Mile is.
It's a great ending. Very similar too.
Exactly. It's kind of a man like learning the lessons and having to live with it. Mm-hmm. I still think this is probably his best. And I thought that before we started, just because it is so powerful and it's so bittersweet and it is like how the story should end. It doesn't feel like a cheat at all. But I think now that I'm kind of having my whole codependency reading of it, like it is perfect for that. And I think it is just a really beautiful life lesson about like enjoying the moments while you have them, and that the fact that they're gone is not necessarily bad. There's still beauty. And I love would we feel the same if it ended without the Citizen of the Century section? Because it almost feels like a double ending too,
Well, that's a good question, Jen. And that leads us into our last part of this, which is the original ending. Dun, dun, dun. You probably knew this already.
I feel like you're going to do the Wayne's World like Scooby-Doo ending.
Let's do the original King ending. So I feel like everyone who hasn't even read this book knows that there is an original ending, and they also know that Joe Hill, son to Stephen, helped his father find the landing that we've all just been praising here for the last 30, 45 minutes. What was the original ending? Well, on January 24th, 2012, King published the ending on his website. Jen, why don't you read it? It starts with the final dispatch.
Okay. I have not read this before either. Okay. So, and maybe I'll do a little Jody accent.
Oh, go for it.
From the Jody Doings column of the Killeen Weekly Gazette, November 22, 2013, when millionaire and former school teacher, as he never fails to point out, Trevor Anderson throws a party, you know it's going to be Texasized, and last week's bash in Jody's JFK Memorial Park was no exception. It was also a Texas-sized surprise for this lovely wife, Sadie, who turned 80 years young earlier this month. Oh, we know how Stephen King feels about years young. How he kept it from the nosiest woman in town, I'll never know, said the happy birthday girl, pictured here with all 5 of her children, all 11 of her grandchildren, and an even half-dozen great-grandchildren. Clan Anderson was flown in from all parts of the country by her handsome hubby of 50 golden summers. What a wonderful thing to do, she said, and gosh, how we did eat. The menu, need you ask? Barbecue by the gallon and pecan pie for dessert. As they say in these parts, that's good eatin'. Music was provided by the Tejano Trio, and the dancing went on to the wee hours. She may be getting on in years, one smiling partygoer told this reporter, but that lady can dance the shoes off women half her age. The flowers? Yellow roses, of course, for the prettiest yellow rose in Denholm County. When asked about her arm, which was in a cast that had been signed by many wee hands, Mrs. Anderson told this reporter it was a simple break and healing well. I've always been accident-prone, the belle of the ball admitted. If there's something to trip over, my toes will find it. When queried about how she thanked her husband once the festivities were over, the still lovely Sadie, unbent and 6 feet tall, answered with a shy laugh. I just told him how much I loved him, she said. He's always been my good angel. The photographer has been careful to take this picture so it features the right side of Sadie Dunhill Anderson's face.
This is Jake. This is Jake.
Oh, okay, that's Jake. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
okay.
or at least
the
notes,
photographer has been okay. The photographer has been careful to take this picture so it features the right side of Sadie Dunhill Anderson's face. From that angle, the scar identifying her left cheek is not visible, but that was the photographer's decision and not at all the subject's request. It's a very old scar now, the wound inflicted by a man who has been many years in his grave, and she makes no particular attempt to hide it. Her husband says it lends character to her face and sometimes makes a point of kissing her there. That isn't in the article, of course not, but the man who found this item during one of his frequent internet searches would not have been surprised. To the loving eye, even smallpox scars are beautiful.
So, better or worse?
Worse.
Worse.
Way worse.
Yeah.
Worse.
Several reasons. You end on folksiness, which is not King's, not my favorite mode of King. Is he suggesting something by the fact that her husband's last name is Anderson?
I think that's time bending
Weird.
again.
And it just isn't. I respect that he wants to give her this really treacly happy ending, but once again I think that cheats a little bit. I just don't think that's how life works. I don't say that pessimistically. I think this book is about, it's like Jen said, it's about the balance of everything, the balance of the big and the small, the good and the bad, and I just don't think it gets at that. Now look, had that been the ending in the book and we didn't ever get this new ending, the new better ending, would I think it was bad? Maybe not, right? Like I don't think plot wise it's a horrible way to end the book, and maybe if we didn't have this such strong ending, we wouldn't feel that way. But hearing them back to back, I'm like, no, fuck that ending. That ending sucked.
And it goes to the Crispin Glover thing, the critique of Back to the Future, because like it opens when millionaire and former school. It's like, oh, she's a millionaire. She lived a good life. You know, it's too. It's like it wouldn't be right for King to just be like,
millionaires.
Gosh, I totally glossed over that. That is true.
I
The
missed that
millionaire
too,
thing is
yeah.
ridiculous.
Crispin Glover, if you don't, the context is like, he says like when Marty goes back to the future, his parents are rich. And it's like, see, he did well in life because he's rich. And he was like, no, I don't think that's like a proper, that doesn't signify happiness
Like
on
a
its own,
message.
which
Yeah.
again, I wish I said this as a millionaire. But it is just very strange when it's like everything works out. And you're right, Dan, with the folksiness, there's so much like, that's good eating. And it Texas size. It gets a little too cheesy.
Like I know that it's the 60s and it's idealist to an extent, you know, like, and that's a little bit more wholesome with the pie fights and stuff. But I don't think Sadie's someone who's like, that's good eating. I mean, she has some turns of phrase, like what she say about when they're gambling, and she says something about Jesus, and they, but still, that's like a more creative saying than just like good eating. Literally sounds like an episode of Hee Haw or something.
And what's funny though is there's inaccuracies in it, which I think goes back to, you know, when during the Dunning thing, they're like, there was one man there, and he's like, no, there was more than one there. And then the Oswald, right? Is there more than one killer? And they say that she's 6 feet tall. She's 5'9". They like make a point of saying. So I do like that there's inconsistencies here that Jake would pick up on, because it is just like, you know, a puff piece about her.
Yeah, I mean, Jen, go for it.
Look, my Sadie does not need a man to make her life worthwhile. So that's the number one thing I would change. I love that she's just been single this whole time. I mean, and she may have dated somebody, but like there's, like you said, like the millionaire thing, there's this like idea that a marriage and children, that is a success. And that's just not the Sadie that we've been following throughout the book, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of like the bluntness of this. I think it's kind of like
answers all questions. It
really does. You're like, holy shit! But it is.
Was she sad after her husband cut her? Yes, she was, but she got over it. You know.
I mean, it gets through everything, and then it also just allows. It sort of disengages us with Jake in a way that we don't really see the emotionalism. We just kind of feel it.
Yeah.
And that's, I kind of like that. It's very. I'm not going to say it's Hemingway-esque, but it does feel in that vein of just like, and it kind of ties back to the origins of King when you think of Carrie and how he let his story being told through like, you know, the periodicals and articles and stuff like that. I do kind of like that, but I mean, yeah, it is little apples and oranges to, you know, the ending that we'd get.
Yeah.
Fleeger.
Oh, I was going to say, it's funny because there are harmonics within this.
Yes.
So even like, he's always been my good angel, like the guardian angel that Dunning thought he had, you know, her being accident prone or clumsy. There's like a little too much of a summary of her that, you know, obviously Jake's picking up on these little details, but
it's very cute.
It's too wrapped in like a neat little package to be enjoyable. It's a little too saccharine.
Yeah.
Well, it's also stuff that I don't know if Jake necessarily deserves to know about this life that she had too. You know, like you mentioned, like it takes away from Jake's emotional impact of this. And I feel like the story is Jake's story and it is his journey. As much as I love Sadie, like it's not her story. And that's why it's first person from Jake all the way through. And this feels like a glimpse into her life that Jake has kind of admitted that he doesn't get to have anymore because he's given this up. And it I don't know, it might almost feel like cruel, you know?
I had a question on this. So on page 764, which is pretty close to the, you know, at least towards the end of the book, there's a quote that says, where Jake says, and this is an in case if there ever was one. The Sadie in my head whispered she would live there until I saw her again in the flesh. I swore I would no matter what. So I'm wondering, was this King dialing back after Joe's ending, or was he perhaps subconsciously forecasting the ending that we got today?
Oh, like did he go back and
add that? Because that just seems like
question,
such a like the idea that we know King, and for him to say that, like, I swore I would no matter what, that just feels like he had an idea of, or maybe it adds more to the tragedy. But I'd love to know if that was like an addition towards the end. Where it's like, I kind of have to foreshadow this because he loves that. Like that's his. It's almost like I feel like he needed to go in.
I feel like he went back and added that. That's just a gut feeling because of what you just said. Because foreshadowing is such a tool he uses all the time. That's just me though. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just one thing that caught my eye when I was thinking about the ending and the two different endings.
Well, I think it could exist in both versions, you know, but I like that. What I would prefer was the reality, and who knows if it's true or not, is that he wrote that the first time through, and then after Joe's ending went back in and just left it, you know, and considered, because he does see her. Yeah. He just, you know, he checks in to make sure she's okay. But yeah, it's right there. It reads, and in where we see it in the time period, it's like I can't let go. And then, but there's also a reading of it as I saw her again, and that was enough. You know.
Yeah. And I think if you look at King's career, I mean, the concept of going back in time and changing things, he's done that with several of his novels, right?
He has.
We have a different version of The Stand. We have a different version of The Dark Tower. So it seems very fitting that he would get caught in this cycle that maybe Jake is of like, how often do I go back? Like, what do I do? How do I change things? So I don't know. That just dawned on me now that we're looking at like these alternate endings that he kind of has gone back in time throughout his career. I usually think for the better too, but it's like that urge to constantly go back, or, you know, even we have The Shining, but I want to make this version of The Shining, right? It's there's like you can get lost in that very easily.
But then when he talked to y'all, he was like talking about his relationship with Pennywise, and he was like, no, that's not something that is currently in my mind. It's just like something that happened in my life. And I don't want to talk too much about the ending because I know we're probably going to get there. But like when you think about going back and repeating things over and over again, of course, that obviously brings up the Dark Tower ending. And I think in both stories, we find out that that's not necessarily like the power to do that is not necessarily a good thing, you know, and that you shouldn't do it. And the battle, what makes you heroic is resisting that temptation and just accepting. And, you know, and that's again, back to the sobriety thing is like accepting life on life's terms and stop trying to impose your will on it, you know?
Yeah. One thing I wanted to note from this original ending was that his frequent internet searches. Jake, have you ever heard of Google alerts? You know, just put that Sadie Dunhill or Sadie name in there. You know, I'm sure every day he's getting like a Beatles Sadie update for him. And he's just like, I thought it was about her. God damn it.
What if he's like, Jeeves told me that this thing happened?
Yeah. God.
He's like, I could have had a Zenith TV on for free. He's Googling Zenith TV value now.
He's like,
value,
what if all that? If I could have had the key to the city, he like starts Googling, you know, people who did win during that time.
Person of the century. What about me?
What about me? I was the man of the century.
He tried to like bring all the loot back through the rabbit hole and just sell it as like
I wish he
vintage
did.
prices.
I mean, he should have brought. What if it was just the TV? It's kind of like in what is that movie? Oh, Tropic Thunder, when like McConaughey's so obsessed with like the dish TV.
I love that bit. He's like chasing with the remote.
I got your satellite television.
So funny.
So Joe, you know, in terms of what he added, I was trying to look for some quotes from him, and I know I've seen it somewhere, but the one tidbit I did find was, so the moderator of StephenKing.com, they responded to a fan in 2011 asking what Joe contributed, and this is what this is the message was. I was able to ask Steve about this, so here's his answer. Joe only told him that Jake had to meet Sadie again when she was an old lady, but how that happened was completely Steve's idea. So what we've read in the book was all Steve's writing based on Joe's suggestion to have Jake see Sadie one more time. He also told me it would be okay to put up the original version of the ending, but I need to wait at least a month before doing so to give people the chance to read it as published. That was nice of him. So yeah, I think there is a misunderstanding out there that when people think that like Joe Hill actually wrote the ending. He didn't write the ending.
It's funny because I thought that back like when this happened in real time, and I'm not sure why, because I also remembered that upon my initial read of it, I remembered that the afterword went way more into it and what Joe Hill did, but I must have read something further down the line.
That's what I thought too. I mean, maybe it's in the hardcover. I'm only using the paperback, so
I have the hardcover though. And same thing. He just says, "Oh, Joe, thanks, Joe, for the ending or whatever." But I remember at the time there being like a lot of fuss made about that. And I remember him actually writing it too, but I guess we were wrong. Maybe someone went back and changed that in time for us.
Oh,
that's where we're now.
It's a Mandela effect.
Bears.
Wonka says,
you're
scratch
welcome.
that. What does Wonka say? Scratch that.
You still
repeat.
can't get this. You
Strike that.
Strike that from the record.
Flip it in reverse.
Strike that from the chocolate record. That's what he says, I think.
Who's seen Wonka movie?
Wonka movie.
Yeah, no one's seen it?
I'm camping out after this record.
Milking.
Well, it certainly sounds like my misery.
Yeah,
She died. She just slipped away.
Slipped away! Slipped away! She didn't just slip away! You did it! 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 You murdered my misery!
Annie!
How about that seg, huh?
Nice.
That was a good one.
Thanks, Timmy Chi.
Ooh.
All right. I don't have much here. I'll just throw out mine real quick because we're going to round robin this. But you know, again, if you're for the uninformed who's just stumbling into part 6 of our series here, but we're going to talk about the parts that we didn't really like very much. The only part I didn't like was when Jake's in the taxi and he hears the guy like kind of shit on the music and the dancing, and he's like, "Dancing's life." I was like, "All right, we get it."
Yeah, I don't mind Jake saying that to himself internally, but it's which he does many times. It does sound weird for him to say it to a cab driver. And don't be mean to the cab.
Well, it's also just the dancing, and it's like, all right, I get it. Yeah, you know, it's the theme.
Yeah.
I didn't even write it down. I think we were going to talk about it, but then we didn't. I do think I don't have this is like literally the only thing I have.
Yeah.
What does Jackie O say about time? Like, oh, you must have.
Oh
gone
yeah,
back
that
in
is
time.
one. I didn't like that either. Yeah, it's like if I could go back and change time, it just felt a little on the nose. Yeah,
But even then, it's not even like the writing sucks. It's just like, just putting too fine a point on it.
it's
yeah.
cute. Yeah,
But
again, it's cute.
I don't have anything other than that. It's
I
so
know.
good.
What about Jen Flieger?
I do. I've got one.
Uh oh.
And this is, maybe if I could go back in time and change anything. Okay, on page 817, and it's fine. It's not bad writing. It just like punched me. Okay. By then, it wasn't our problem. Maine voted to become part of Canada, and President Clinton was happy to say good riddance. Bill Clinton's president? Gosh, no. He was a shoo-in for the 2004 nomination, but he died of a heart attack at the convention. His wife stepped in. She's president. Doing a good job? Harry waggled his hand. Not bad, but you can't legislate earthquakes.
Yeah, it's a little on the nose also.
And just to think like in 2011,
You just heard about pretty much well, I guess this is before he really does hear about all the end of the world and everything. I take that back. But it just feels like, well, there are like cannibals or like mutants outside, basically. Like, are you really going to give a shit about how our candidacy
Exactly. Hey, but she's a woman, so we have to critique her mercilessly.
Yeah,
of
it
course,
just
so.
that felt very. It's like the same thing with the Obama comment earlier. It's just like allows kind of to throw in some opinion and it's like, I don't mind it, but it's also just like it takes me out of the book a little bit.
Well, and also like I would go back in time and do some things that relate to that. So
Yeah, it's hey, watch out, Orange Cheeto man, right?
the orange card man.
The orange card man, you know what I
yeah.
mean? We're talking about
for
fucking idiot, right? Anything else? Any other misery?
I think it's such a good novel. Like, we've had 6 episodes. I think I've shared some of my thoughts, but I think this ends really strong. I really don't have much.
It's such a
Yeah.
I mean, know what it is? We were saying earlier about like the Dead Zone and that having an equally good ending, and I agree with that. I think why this stands out so much, it's so late in the game for him, and it's such an epic, but not only just the epic, it is just perfectly plotted, and the prose is like a machine in this. I said in the first episode I was on how it almost feels like a hard-boiled crime thriller in many ways, and to mix that with sci-fi and not have it feel hokey, it's just mind-blowing to me. I mean, I love this book.
And I think even going back to Duma Key, I would think of like Under the Dome as kind of like his new phase of writing, but more and more I'm like, man, Duma Key kind of ushered that in, right?
It did, yeah.
He shouldn't be writing books this good this late in his career, but it is like he turned over a new leaf, and I think this, Under the Dome, Duma Key are just like exceptionally strong novels, and it's like if he had started with these books, that would have been great. So the fact that he's making this, which is arguably my favorite of his novels, the one that we're talking about right now, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, and if you look at like he just completed the Dark Tower, and it's almost like he's got this freedom now because a lot of these are like it's almost kind of a newer phase of like less like horror in quotation marks, more kind of like sci-fi adventure, and it feels like he's kind of shaking off the expectation of horror and just kind of letting himself write about what he wants to write. And I think it is, we talked about this a lot about in the first episode about him going back to old ideas and kind of reinventing new stuff. And I think it does feel like, in the introduction where he talks about the new penny every year and your body like regenerates, it feels like a new kind of King going in a different direction.
It's telling that it's not telling. This is a fucking theory, but we've been talking about Springsteen and King a lot over the last year, or the last months or so. But the parallels still are so just kind of wild for me, because if you look at the same trajectory of Springsteen, when he comes back with Magic and his kind of tear on that, it's his legacy and just even the way he's discussed in culture is sort of the same way of what happens with King here. He's creating these albums that feel true to his origins and yet new at the same time, and yet also relatable to an entirely new generation. And I really just can't think of too many other creatives that had that sort of that power, and especially to that sort of ubiquitousness. I mean, even Springsteen to a lesser effect, but like I guess you could name like Bowie out there as one when towards his last few albums.
I would say like Nick Cave, but once again, there's not that ubiquity there. I mean, Nick Cave's famous, but he's not. Yeah. He's not Springsteen level or King level. Yeah.
A household name.
But it was like, I remember like after 05 or 07, it was like all of a sudden, oh wow, King's a statesman again. or maybe in a way that he never was before. And it's like you get in this, and it's like Obama's in office. Obama's recognizing King. You know, we're having a president that's reading King.
Did he win the medal, the congressional medal?
He did.
Was it Presidential Medal of Freedom or?
Oh yeah, yeah,
so, yeah.
It's like Stephen, I loved 1122, but I didn't appreciate what you said about me doing just an okay job.
Yeah, he's like, do you think? I know you went on a rewrite for the Dark Tower. Do you think you could change the things that we have, on that paper? It's like maybe after your term.
He's like, we'll see how it goes, Barack.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a good time. I mean, I think it's interesting to see the parallels because I'm just always so obsessed with rebounds and like kind of the comeback. The comeback story is so big, and it's like sometimes the comebacks are so minimal. Like I think of like the one I always go to is just like the Mickey Rourke thing with like the wrestler and how that kind of was like, it was like a shrug.
Yeah, he really
tries to
botched that comeback.
Three-Leg Pony Springsteen song. I love that.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
A one-legged dog in that song, though? It's so weird.
Oh, is this, so
Three-Legged Pony is one thing, but a one-legged dog, is it like the dog from The Thing? Is it just like slithering down the sidewalk? I don't know.
We'll have to ask the great Bard if he comes on ever.
I took inspiration from Steven for that one. I wanted to get a little
Put down the guacamole.
My favorite book of his is Road Work because I like to get out there and get my hands dirty too.
I'm working on the highway.
It's not really about that, Stephen or Bruce.
We got to get back to Nebraska.
Look, I like Barton Dawes.
Yeah,
it's a good. Barton Dawes walked right out of one of my songs, in my opinion. He's a great protagonist. He's a real local hero, in my opinion.
Reminds me of my father. All right, let's get past all the Springsteen songs and maybe evade some of these earthquakes and look at the parting clouds where the sunlight is beaming down on the word processor of the gods.
And we're gonna make a new rule. Whenever I'm in here, you hear me typing. Whether you don't hear me typing, what the fuck you hear me doing in here, when I'm in here, that means that I am working. That means don't come in. Now, do you think you can handle that?
Yeah.
Fine. Why don't you start right now and get the fuck out of here?
Probably a lot of pros here for brevity's sake, because we gotta appreciate the brevity as we're going to be discussing soon enough. Let's share, one or two each. Because I'm sure there's just a lot of, there's only 97 pages in this section, but there's a lot of good lines.
Who's doing the ending? Let's just call it. Jen, you got it?
No, y'all can do it. I've got a couple others if anybody wants to claim it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mike, you want to do the
it?
ending?
No, Caffrey, you go for it.
Oh, really? I wasn't even doing that to try and get it. I assumed that was going to be the...
Well, you just muscled your way through.
Wow, Sammy's like, how'd the pod go, Mike? He's like, that fucking Caffrey, he's always stealing my word processor.
That goddamn Johnson. Or what's the guy from Forrest Gump?
What actor, Wesley, is that his name in Forrest Gump? The guy, it's just this asshole Johnson or whatever.
Asshole Johnson?
Yeah, that's so funny. All right. Okay, here we go. Oh, man, where do I even start? Okay, I'm gonna. Hey, this is a Springsteen song, Party Lights. So we'll start with Party Lights, okay. Party lights hang over the street, yellow and red and green. Sadie stumbles over someone's chair, but I'm ready for this and catch her easily by the arm. Sorry, clumsy, she says. You always were, Sadie, one of your more endearing traits. Before she can ask about that, I slip my arm around her waist. She slips hers around mine, still looking up at me. The lights skate across her cheeks and shine in her eyes. We clasp hands, fingers holding together naturally. And for me, the years fall away like a coat that's too heavy and too tight. In that moment, I hope one thing above all others. That she was not too busy to find at least one good man, one who disposed of John Clayton's fucking broom once and for all. She speaks in a voice almost too low to be heard over the music, but I hear her. I always did. Who are you, George? Someone you knew in another life, honey. Then the music takes us, the music rolls away the years, and we dance. How are you going to beat that? Amazing.
Know.
Just just fucking crushing it, man. Anyway.
I got so worried that you're going to take, because this is my favorite part. This is the one that kills me. It's literally the paragraph that right above the party lights. She takes my hand like a woman in a dream. She is in a dream, and so am I. Like all sweet dreams, it will be brief. But brevity makes sweetness, doesn't it? Yes, I think so. Because when the time is gone, you can never get it back. Like that's the passage that brought me to tears this time.
It's the thesis of the book.
Yeah.
It is.
100%. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Jen, You seem excited with what another passage is. The paragraph above that one?
No.
We just keep going
Yeah,
backwards.
you're like, oh, well, Dan gets the ending. I'm going to give you the ending.
Exactly.
Yeah, scratch that. Mark
Reverse
the
it.
spot.
Flip and
Reverse it.
That's my Wonka flute. Well, it's interesting because you said the ending, and I was like, which ending? Because I love the other one, which I thought was going to be the for real ending. Before I read that, though, on just the page before, it's 8:30. It's Jake trying to decide what he's going to do. It says, "No, Jake," I hear the ochre card man whisper. "If John Clayton is supposed to kill her and doesn't, changes will occur. And as you've seen for yourself, the changes are never for the better, no matter how good your intentions are." And that kind of goes to my overall theory. Like, it doesn't matter how good you think what you want to do is, you don't know everything.
No.
You're not God. But then on the next page, this might be my favorite. "Right now, I'm going nowhere except to bed, where I will lay my wet face on the pillow and pray to a God I can't quite believe in to send my Sadie some good angel so she can live and love and dance. Goodbye, Sadie. You never knew me, but I love you, honey." So sweet. I love that he calls her honey so much. You know, that's like it's a Southern thing, but it's like I call people honey a lot. And
I've been saying it randomly lately.
Honey?
I don't know if it's just with age. Yeah, like I've
You
seen
called me
it with
that in
San-
Chicago. It was weird. It was like how you welcomed me to the stage.
you're like,
Get
"Hey,
up here, honey.
I like in Back to Future 3, I had to do it. I had to make a reference to it. But he does, Doc calls Marty honey at one point. So,
Does he?
yeah.
Oh, it's sweet. I like being called honey. I call lots of people honey. So
In The Sopranos, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen The Sopranos, don't listen to what I'm about to say. But when Tony pulls AJ out of the pool, I think he calls him honey, like, "Oh, it's okay, honey," like it's his son. He says
sweetheart,
baby,
I'm trying to
sweetheart. It's so, and it's so,
Yeah,
it's
that's a
moving to hear him
moving
say
scene.
the. You see this masculine guy say that, yeah.
Get off the stage, sweetheart. So Ralph Wiggum gets
Any
told
others?
by Chief Wiggum. I have one, again, goes to the thesis. It's a little short one, but the multiple choices and possibilities of daily life are the music we dance to.
Oh, it's such a good
Oh.
line.
Ah, man.
Such a fucking good line.
And then one that might
man.
not be from the section, but I put it in my notes bolded, but I do like this. "When all else fails, give up and go to the library."
Yeah.
Good
Oh.
advice.
It's how I live my life.
Yeah.
yeah, books.
Susan says,
and
"Dan, get
stands
back
out.
here and feed our son." I say, "Nope,
Nope.
going to the library.
Gotta rent up some movies.
I'm going to go read about how to do this and not actually
Only
do it."
lose.
You're
Read about
like-
other people doing it. I
Give
have
me those
one
CDs. Oh, go for it, Jen.
more. It's just one of those like little sentences that I just think is so pretty. It's on 787 when he's back in Maine. "It was cold. God was clearing his throat and spitting casual snow from a dirty gray sky."
Oof, it's so good.
There's
There's a lot of really pretty moments in that, too.
I mean, it's like take your pick in this book. I mean, any
It
I
page
know.
really is.
overflowing with it, yeah.
There's that crescent moon that I think he talks about when he gets back into Maine also. A brilliant crescent moon rode high in the sky. I got the extra blanket from the closet and slept for another 5 hours. It's just, he's just, this whole stretch is just fucking phenomenal. And I'm glad that you brought up the Green Mile, because I was thinking about that too, because there's this sort of like tranquility throughout this, even though this is a really fast paced ending when you think about it, at least towards, where we pick up on at the beginning of the section. But there's also a tranquility here that comes from just like really like searching yourself. And I think that's what the Green Mile does really well at the end too. So, well, I think that's it. I think that's the sunlight. It's closing. The clouds are building in. I'm seeing, oh no, there's an earthquake. I can feel the rumbling going. There's lightning. There's thunder. And the gates open for the cemetery.
What's the bottom of the truth?
Well, sometimes that is better. The person you put up there ain't the person that comes back. It may look like that person, but it ain't that person. Because whatever lives in the ground beyond that cemetery ain't human at all.
I'll just say this right now. I think we probably can pick and choose a million fucking pieces for the cemetery in this, because I think the alternate 2011 is some of the scariest stuff that King has ever written. And I think a large part of that is because there are some things in that I I don't want to go into tangents and rabbit holes, especially as it relates to climate change, but holy hell does it make my skin crawl a little bit reading about some of this stuff, but I'll just leave it at that. What scared you the most in this section?
Yeah, I didn't write down any passages. What it reminded me of is when Scrooge goes to the Christmas future and he's kind of seeing this almost destitute version of the places he used to know, and he finds out he's dead, of course. I think I know this is simple, just the way the sky looks. And what I like that he does in this section overall is that it would be easy to have it just have all these creatures around and all this like crazy shit happening, but instead it's almost more just this monotony of living in an ashy world.
Yes.
I like that it's just seeing kind of normal people deal with, and how casually they talk about it. Like, oh yeah, there's earthquakes every day, you know? Kind of the way we talk about school shootings now, I think. Like the fact that these just happen so much now that they're a part of everyday life. So yeah, that I think just the mundanity of how this is all treated shows how bad everything's gotten. So that's the scariest part for me.
I think that's what chilled my bones too, is this sense that like we are already treating this as remedial on our end, like something that has just become par for the course, something that, like, think about how we haven't actually even heard of the headlines anymore as we used to about the shootings and about the bombings, because it's part of it.
Oh, now it's literally like, oh, cool, only 5 kids died. That's not that bad, I guess. I mean, it's just horrible to say, but it's just, that's how you get with it. Yeah.
Sammy was like looking through Instagram Reels once, and like there was someone that was like, oh, I've survived 2 school shootings. And it's just like, fucking Christ. Like, it's just that sort of dystopian feel of this passage of, the stretch that Harry gives to Jake. It was, I think it killed me the most is just how so much of it feels prescient. Yeah. And that's sad, like incredibly fucking sad. But
interesting to me is a lot of the stuff that happens are like weather patterns and like geological things. You're like, wait, how is it preventing Kennedy causing an earthquake? And we never get a full explanation for that, which I think is really scary. It's like, wait, how did this change for that? And even like he talks about an angry wind erases the homes on Mercedes Street. It's almost like nature itself is trying to get him. And I also like the fact that it's not that, you think his journey was to save Kennedy, right? And that now it's done. But the past is still coming after him, right? It doesn't care. You just happened to save Kennedy, but we're still going to keep coming after you. And I think the homes being erased on Mercedes Street just indicate that even if Jake goes back to his regular timeline, things are going to follow him, which I think is very creepy to always keep one eye open.
Again, goes back to the foreshadowing, right? Like just when he first mentions there's thunder, something's wrong. And I love that. I love just, especially as a constant reader, it's so much fun to kind of pick out those details, and the way he weaves that in and allows, and especially once you hear upon like the earthquake thing, just so haunting. It's so haunting. And it's only going to get worse. It's like, oh, that happened in the last couple of days, and fuck, this is going to be a monumental disappointment.
Yeah.
And it is. I mean, just there's so many, like, I don't know what the conversation must have been like. I really wish I imagine they taped it and King was able to kind of replay it, but I'd love to know what him and Doris were talking about in terms of these alternate history ideas, like Goodwin, Doris Kearns Goodwin, I meant. Some of these alternate history ideas feel so real and yet also just so apocalyptic in a way that does feel very fantastical, but I think the reason why they're haunting me so much is because I don't think they are. I think they actually are pretty accurate. I think a lot of this stuff is pretty goddamn scary.
Well, he talks about the Vermont nuclear reactor, and that's the Vermont Yankee nuclear power station, which I think actually Caffrey and I have a friend who works there or did.
Oh.
But that's got to be on his mind. And, I know we are all fans of Chernobyl, the series.
What's the show?
Yeah.
I haven't heard of.
Very excellent show. But him being, that is close to Maine, and you can tell that he's probably like, yeah, what if this melts down? Like, that's close enough to where I live. So I think including that detail up top of all the other disasters, and just having like the kids are wilding out and have no nose, and everyone has like radiation sores. Maine is part of Canada, which is truly terrifying.
There's just like small little details. This is where King just excels at too. And we talk a lot about this in, his large town or his larger ensemble pieces, but I just always think about those moments in like The Stand, like when we get to kind of see about all the accidents that are happening, or especially when like the electricity turns on in Boulder and you just allows King to like just have fun with his imagination. And like one piece was this, it's like on page 817. By 1994, Harry said in his dry voice, the oil fields over there, by there it means Russia, were so much black glass, the kind that glows in the dark. Since then, though, the terrorism has kind of burned itself out. Someone blew up a suitcase nuke in Miami 2 years ago, but it didn't work very well. I mean, it'll be 60 or 80 years before anybody can party on South Beach. And of course, the Gulf of Mexico is basically dead soup. But only 10,000 people have died of radiation poisoning. By then, it wasn't our problem. It's like, oh man, just like fucking misery right there. So yeah, I thought that stuff just love it. I love when King can do this. Any others?
Can I list George Wallace being elected president? It's pretty terrifying. He's like segregationist Alabama governor, and then he bombed Chicago into submission, which is insane.
Which is just terrifying stuff, and just the image of kind of where some of these icons of history, for better or worse, where they end up in this is really clever. And also, like he definitely thought of what's the worst case scenario with some of these. Jen, you mentioned you have a few.
Yeah, I have a couple. One that relates to what we're talking about, and then a couple of other ones. Okay, on page 812, talking about the Japanese islands. 3 were small ones, but Hokkaido's gone too. Dropped into the goddamn ocean 4 years ago like it was on an elevator. The scientists say it's got something to do with the Earth's crust. Matter of factly, he added, they say if it don't stop, it'll tear the planet apart by 2080 or so. Then the solar system will have 2 asteroid belts. And like 2080 is what stood out to me, because that's like conceivably within our lifetimes, if we all have our heads frozen.
Yeah, that is
freaky.
Really creepy. Yeah, just the whole idea of like they're knowing that the Earth is tearing itself apart.
Well, and I think about like an island dropping into the ocean, you know?
Yeah.
But one of the other ones that I had is on page 826, and I think it's a really interesting kind of glimpse into what would it be like if Jake had gone back and tried to live a life with Sadie. So he's talking about, near the market is a Western auto store where I bought a spade and steel footlocker, the kind with a combination. The total cost of my purchases was $17.19. Are these items enough to turn the world dark and filthy? What will happen to the clerk whose ordained course has been changed just by our brief transaction from what it would have been otherwise? I don't know, but I do know this. I once gave a high school football player the chance to shine as an actor, and his girlfriend was disfigured. You could say I wasn't responsible, but we know better, don't we? The butterfly spreads its wings. And I love that like glimpse into his paranoia brain.
Yeah, that's a good take too. I still think he could have stayed in Jody, but I
think
agree.
He probably could have made it work.
Yeah, there are some consequences there, and that's a good one to think about for sure.
And I wonder, like, because it's not so much like, did I cause this? Like, because I don't know if he caused Bobby Jill's accident by the play, but the fact that that's all he would ever be able to think about, Like the only way, and I don't want to step on that conversation, but the only way I think he could stay in Jody is if he had never gone back to begin with, you know?
Yeah.
One scene that I think is scary to me, but it's also one of my favorite scenes in the King universe, is when Roland has the Pavlar with Flag of the fire. And to me, talking to the green card man felt very similar, where
100%.
The green card man is like you don't even understand. Like, it's the vastness, size is what defeats us. And Jake thinks he knows what he's talking about, just like Roland does. And the guys who's really can see the bigger picture is like, you have no idea. Like, and you can see him like glitching out, and the card is swirling and changing colors, and you just see the burden of what time has done to this guy. And he's frustrated with Jake, but he's also like, go see, like, go look at it. You'll never even believe it until you see it with your own eyes. And again, there's like a lot with Roland where he's like, I don't believe you. And Flag's like, it doesn't matter if you believe me, because it is like, this is how it goes.
It is what it is. Yeah. That's a great fucking parallel. Is that when he wakes up and like the bones of
like years have passed?
Walter there. Yeah,
but I love, like, creepy. I still go back to the audiobook of Flag having that Pavlar, and just I listen to that because it's set to music, and I think it's like it matches a lot what's going on here with the green card man.
Is that in the Gunslinger?
Yeah, it's at the very end of the Gunslinger
That's
when he
what I
sits
thought.
down and it kind of like lays out.
Well,
Is that the
speaking
future?
of the Gunslinger, you're saying a lot of words that mean a lot of things to me, and I'm getting a little nervous, but I think it's because we're entering King's Dominion.
There's another world out there. I know there is.
Well, here we are, our last entry of King's Dominion. You know, there's some few things here and there that are little nuggets, little tokens. But I think the larger thing to discuss here is basically someone we've been pretty much discussing this entire time, which is the Green Card Man, aka Zach Lang from Seattle, whose time in Seattle is no meaning or purpose of to this conversation. So we won't go too far into that. But you know, we've got the two Dans here, the Dark Tower experts, and I kind of wanted to know your takes on Lang and how it relates, how Lang and the Green Card Man and just even the concepts of time, now that we know all about it in this section, how you feel it relates to like the larger fabric of Midworld, the Dark Tower, King's Dominion, etc. You know, how do you think this fits in? Do you think it's a separate thing? Do you think it's together? What are your takes?
It's funny because on the episode I was on before, I had talked about them feeling like beam guardians, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, there's no way they're that because they're not giant animals and it doesn't really play exactly into what we know about beam guardians. But then it's funny that he uses that exact word, I think, as guardians and the guardians of these, what do they call them, bubbles or something, right? Like these little pockets of time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not saying that once again that they're the same as Shardik or whatever else, but that language choice does lead me to believe it's somehow tied to the tower. And because he doesn't know everything and that he also seemed to be very content with just being a cog in the machine, I almost wonder if it's like the same relationship that the Breakers have to the Taheen or whatever. Like it almost seemed like they were being forced to do this and maybe their minds had been wiped and weren't quite sure why. I'm not saying there's enough here to get exact specifics of their role in the Dark Tower universe, but to me they seem to be forced to do this perhaps by the antagonistic forces in the Dark Tower. I don't know, Fleeger, were you along with that?
Yeah, well, it's weird because like when Kyle talks about, or Zach, sorry, Kyle's the first one, but Zach is like, yeah, you know, it's when we go through the training and, you know, a lot of people commit suicide from this job and you're like, wait, why would you do it then? And it's almost like he's getting some kind of, either he's fulfilling a debt, he's getting some kind of reward, but there's something compelling him to do this, even though he knows it's going to destroy him. You know, and he talks about Kyle, like, yeah, that guy like lost his mind. You know, it's too bad his bubble was near a liquor store, and it's like, but why would you do it? And I think it's cool that we don't get a full explanation, right? Because that could be a whole novel on its own.
Yeah,
just like, why would you do this?
Did we bring up, we may have on my episode, I can't remember, did we bring up like Dinky Earnshaw from Everything's Eventual? Because it almost feels like that.
We hinted at it.
It does.
It does
like
feel
that,
very
yeah.
similar.
The way they're employed that we find out now that it's kind of just like, yeah, we're just doing this thing because it feels very much like his relationship. It feels like, and even their names like Zach and Kyle, no offense, Kyle Horozovich, but they're very young sounding kind of common names, right? I mean, same thing if he was just named Dan. His name isn't like Ludwig or something. And so to me, that kind of spells that they almost feel like normies who got thrown into this and they know it's mysterious and weird and probably dangerous, but they are just fine being kind of, like I said, a cog in the machine, a gear in the wheel that they don't really understand. Because I didn't get the idea that, I think they understood kind of the mechanics of their job, but not like the overall ramifications of it, which is strange because you think they would, given the fact that it deals with time travel.
Well, I almost saw them as like, and you'll know from Dune, the Guild Navigators.
Yeah.
Where like they can see so far into the future that they navigate the ships so that you don't crash into anything.
But they just
and maybe
need
it's
spice,
like
and that's
Kyle
kind of
and Zach have this something innate about them that allows them to keep all these complicated time threads, you know, balanced more than the average person could. I don't, you know, who knows what the selection process is, or if, you know, they're being forced to do it, if there's some reward. It's very vague and I think it's very interesting to end the final part as the Green Card Man.
No, what's interesting too is that we always talk how King doesn't quite traffic in ambiguity most of the time. How if you suspect it's a monster, you suspect someone's dead. That's probably the case, and he'll usually explain that for you, right? This is one of the few instances where I think King does know exactly who they are and how they probably tied to the Dark Tower universe or mythos, but he doesn't say it. That was interesting to me because it's like one of the few times where he, as far as I know, in subsequent books, he hasn't explained any of it either. I don't know, maybe he will in something in the future, but like I didn't get the idea that he was just kind of doing the Lost approach and just be like, yeah, I guess they're this. Like I felt like he knew exactly who they were, and it was interesting that he didn't reveal that information to us.
Yeah. Jen, do you have some thoughts on this?
I have some thoughts and questions. So my first kind of thought is like, why is he here? He's, protecting the rabbit hole, but like Jake is coming through, like the rabbit hole is being used. And so like, I guess one question is, why does Kyle not tell Jake what's going to happen if he tries to go back and like fuck with all the timelines? Why does like he continue to let Al believe that this beef, that every time is a reset, that there aren't all of these strings? And if he did tell Jake, if you do this, you're going to wreck the entire world, do you think Jake would believe him and not go back? Or do you think Jake had to see it for himself?
Well, because he was Kyle a drunk pretty much? Kyle's was he a drunk even when Al started going back? Part of me wonders if he just had gotten incapacitated to the point where he couldn't do his job anymore.
Yeah, I think it's the small little trips that eventually start adding up for him, and that's why he started drinking more and more and more. I mean, there is some sense that he has at least an understanding of his own faculties. Even when Jake's there. So, like, he was aware in a sense, but I do think he was already a little too far gone. He's
and Zach even says, like, the bubble that he was in just happened to have a liquor store that you could walk to and still stay in the bubble. But just going back to, like, the Flag, Randall, like, when he talks about, atoms and universes, and Roland's like, I don't believe you. And he's like, it doesn't matter. You don't have to. And I think that's the approach that Zach and Kyle have of, like, if I told you not to do this because you'll wreck time, it's like, you won't believe me. That's why he makes him go back and says, like, look at what you've done. Like, go there, but then come back so you're going to have to reset it. Like, look at the apocalypse that you've caused. And also, I just don't think they would have believed him unless they saw it with their own eyes.
I think, too, I mean, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the deterioration of institutions and how big of a theme that becomes in the Dark Tower novels toward their end especially, is that I love how these guys are being presented almost like blue-collar workers, right? And it feels like in the case of Kyle, right? Kyle's the drunk one. I keep mixing up Kyle and Zach.
Yeah.
It feels like in the case of Kyle, he's a guy who just started drinking on the job and not doing his job well anymore. And once again, that ties back to the Dark Tower 7 of, the downfall to this person is just a really common cause. And yeah, on one hand, you could say it's a cop-out, but I actually love that about it. I mean, it's the same, spoiler alert, but if we go to Mordred's death, right? Mordred's downfall was he ate like a bad piece of meat essentially and got food poisoning, and that's what leads to it. Even Roland's downfall, I mean, a lot of what waylays Roland in the Final Dark Tower book comes from just like stupid mistakes, right? And I think that very much is in theme with that. Like, he kind of started drinking on the job, started going crazy, and then just stopped doing his job and then slit his throat or got his throat slit, however it ends. Like, it's almost like a pathetic end for someone who should have a very important job, right? And I love that King applies that kind of blue collar imperfection / frustration to something cosmic. I think that's a really smart thing to do.
Yeah. And the visual in my head too is like when they're kind of glitching is like the max headroom. Like, it's just like off-putting. Like,
hey, Matt Frewer, right?
I was going to say, King's Dominion. Yeah. Any other King's Dominion? Obviously, there's some bits and pieces that we can kind of call out.
I've got a couple. Well, I don't know. Do we put Chambray shirt in King sight, or is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was 787.
Yeah. So you go ahead, Jen. Do you have it pulled up? Yeah, good.
Oh yeah. Well, it says blue chambray work shirt. Like he grabbed a couple.
The uniform, the King uniform.
It is, yeah.
Do you think King knows that he does that a lot, or is it just
he has to be at this point?
This felt like this is a thing now, and I'm doing it.
I imagine by like the 90s, he was pretty aware of it. Like, wow, I guess I do write about this fucking shirt all the time.
I've got another Dark Tower adjacent one. It's 827 in the hardcover edition. Here's another thing I do know. The past is obdurate for the same reason a turtle shell is obdurate, because the living flesh inside is tender and defenseless. He's talking about time. We all know the turtle, Gon, right? That's the turtle's name. It's kind of the creator of the universe. So that to me seemed very intentional. The fact that he's talking about the creation of time or the nature of time, and then goes back to the animal that kind of embodies that in the King universe.
We really need like an episode with like, Neil deGrasse DeGrasse Tyson with like King just talking about this shit, just going off. Just, you know, give me an hour at the two of them.
What if he's like, Steven, look, you're a smart guy, but there's no way that our universe was created by a turtle. I will not accept
They're
that.
so small and slow.
The size of the turtle must be massive. But,
You know how big that would have to be?
on the Vermont reactor meltdown is June 19th, 1999, which is the same day he was hit by the van.
Yeah.
So it's like that's the meltdown date. It's interesting.
It's just eerie.
Yeah.
Just thinking about the Vermont Chernobyl, we'll never get now.
Well, maybe in that universe you're watching that series over and over again with like sores on your face and
Oh God, yeah, not a worthy change. Like I can live without that show.
I think so too. Yeah. Jen, what else do you have?
Yeah, I got one on page 826. Love is a uniquely portable magic, which I thought was interesting because we know the quote, books are uniquely portable magic. And then also there's talk of closing the circle now that the circle is closed, which is from The Stand. Like the circle opens, the circle closes. Yeah. So that's all I got.
There's the old Bucks and new Bucks that we mentioned earlier. It's like the Running Man, which makes you wonder, is this alternate universe actually the Running Man universe then, which I don't know, it'd be pretty hard, right? Like I guess I could imagine game shows like this, like dystopian type game shows existing in this world.
Yeah, because it's probably like I talked about Hunger Games earlier, but I imagine not every single area is this torn up, like the wealthy people probably, or maybe they're like in Elysium in the air or something. So I don't know. Do we remember much about this? I mean, I know that, all right, so it says that the Running Man takes place in 2025. And so basically, this is all pulling from both memory and especially Wikipedia. So it says, Wiki says that American is a totalitarian dystopia. It's the world's economy is in shambles. There's the co-op city. There's it looks like everyone's needing medicine. I mean, it makes sense that this would actually be the universe that carved out the Running Man, which is kind of fun to think about when you consider it. So it looks like there's Manchester, New Hampshire. I'm looking at other places that could possibly still exist. Derry is involved in this. Portland, Maine is involved in this. But the thing is, so this is 2025. So I guess that wouldn't make sense because if Portland, Maine is in 2025, that would be technically Canada based on this read. But anyway, that's just going way down the rabbit hole on this into Room 237. So, well, to go a little further, how would that actually work? Because if he's in the Running Man universe, we're imagining he's going back to his own time and then he's fucked up his own time. But if he resets, okay, and here's my question that I meant to ask earlier about this whole, how all of this works is what happens to the Deke Simmons and the Ellie Doherty that Jake knew? What is happening to that timeline? Is it still continuing? Or is it just, so he's just kind of, that's where Harry Dunning is?
Well, that's where all, exactly. So when he goes back to 2011 and sees the Gandalf Harry Dunning with the big beard and everything. that world exists. All the past that he had with Sadie, the him stopping the assassination, him knowing Deke, all of those memories that he had in there, all those wonderful times and stuff too. Even just when you think about the Jody Jamboree, those all existed in that timeline, and they all led to that misery. Which is really depressing to think about. Yeah. It really is. And so if he had never gone back, would we have ever gotten the Running Man and the Long Walk and the Bachman stuff, Yeah. And is that a fair trade? Yeah, I mean, if that's a good line to go on, I don't know. I mean, I just can't get over the fact that somewhere when he goes back in that 2011, there, the bodies and all those memories that he had, the bungalow, the Kosla is out there, possibly, I mean, probably dead at this point, but they're all those memories did exist at that point. So it's just so, I guess in hindsight, it makes you realize just how fragile time could be, where it's these great things could exist, but then also this entirely opposite reality could also exist too, which is really creepy.
Concept of the butterfly effect, right? It's flap your wings here and it causes a tsunami overseas. Which actually makes sense then that there would be earthquakes and stuff, because it is the butterfly effect and its origin talks about a tsunami. So it would be how it could cause natural disaster. The only other King's Dominion I saw was I think the Wild and Out teens they call someone a moon man, and maybe that's like Moonlight Man.
Yeah.
Or Gerald's Game and
MOON.
Insomnia.
Oh, yeah.
Are those the night surf teens too?
Ooh, it could be. I love that, like, once again, it's like a bunch of like nefarious teens. Like that's like King's, ultimate villain. Going
Right.
back to like the Night Shift and the Carrie days. It's just like
It all goes back to the
those
greasers. Yeah.
fucking greasers, those bastards. Are we good?
Today.
Any more KD?
I'm just cracking up that I just wrote 798 Tower. That was my contribution to the Dark Tower connection, because I knew both of y'all were going to be on it.
Turn me
Like,
on and
yeah.
turn me
Explain it.
loose.
Well, we've been teasing it. We've been teasing it for 5 episodes now, but this one, we got to do it. We got to give our final thoughts.
Dad, can we go now?
You ready?
Yeah, we've been ready for an hour.
Okay, I'll be right there.
You said that a half hour ago. Yeah, my dad's weird. He gets like that when he's writing.
We're here. We are going to do it. 1 to 5 Pennywise clown noses. Red, bright red Pennywise clown noses. Jen, kick us off.
Well, I think this is a pretty good book. I enjoyed reading it. No, I love this. It was not at all what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a really dry historical novel, and it's just got so much heart and love. And so I was going into this already thinking it was 5 noses, but it wasn't in my top 5 of Stephen King books. And now as we read it, I think there's this what I really connected to is this whole like idea of your responsibility to change the world and how you should exercise that and how you can use your strength and your power to make lasting change and where the boundary between that lies. Because I think one of the things you learn when you love other people is that you can't control their actions and you can't protect them from everything. And it's really, really hard. And I've kind of like destroyed some relationships before because I've tried to have like a heavier hand, or I've gotten sucked into other people's negative like addictions and toxicity because I didn't know how to handle it. And so when I look at Jake, I feel like I've been so hard on him through this whole reread because I see so much of myself in him, like I want to protect everybody. I want to anticipate their needs and I want to be there to fill them. And I think that Jake's lesson and kind of my lesson in reading this is like, you can't do that. You can try, but it's only going to end up hurting you. It's not going to give you the outcome. You may be happy for a little bit, but ultimately that's not the way things are meant to be. Like there's the AA saying is living life on life's terms. And I think that that's kind of what we see in this novel. Like life starts to tear itself apart when Jake tries to like impose his own terms on life. And I really love getting that read out of it because it kind of speaks to the way I want to live my life more. I want to stop trying to like take on everybody's work or like fix things for everybody, but it's so hard. And it's also like we all have these happy moments that happen. And part of my like OCD and part of codependency is wanting to keep those moments going forever and not let them go. And I love that Jake learns that like these beautiful things can exist and they will always exist in our minds. But at a certain point we have to step away. So, and then of course I absolutely love Sadie. And so, yeah, it's a 5 no's for me. I don't know if it's in my top 5 because I would have to kick out a book that I really love, but it's either 5 or 6. So, yeah, it's of all time. Love it. 5 no's.
Pretty good.
It's pretty good, you know? I got
Yeah.
some emotions about it. So
Yeah.
I like it. Gave me fifis.
Oh, I think that's a sentiment we all share for sure.
Yeah, I mean, what a journey it's been. 6 episodes on one book.
Yeah.
Truly covering it from every possible angle, which I think is what you have to take in mind when you go back in time, because there's so much to balance. There's so many facets that you don't even realize are going to affect things. And I'm a person that's always coulda, woulda, shoulda. I always think back and be like, replay things, even if I don't want to. It's my brain's like, but if I had done this, then this would have happened. But it's I've gotten a fender bender. If only I'd left 5 minutes earlier, but then who knows, that could have resulted in a fatal car accident. And it's just, It can swing the pendulum in either direction. And I think I was hooked just once I heard the premise of this book before it even came out. The idea of going back in time to stop the Kennedy assassination. I love time travel. I love the Kennedy history. I love the conspiracies. I was locked in. And then when I found out when I was reading the book, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And the idea that you don't just go right to that time, but you go years in advance. And just like that build-up period and just coming back and only 2 minutes have passed, but clearly, you know, he's putting on years of life and he's looking a lot older. And it's the idea of like, how often would you keep going back? And, you know, Jake is kind of a cautionary tale for me, the same way that the green card or the yellow card man is a cautionary tale for him. It's you think you can go back and help things, but you really can't. We're kind of on this pathway of the beam, if it was. And it's just like, the man on a mission element, and Jen and I were talking about this at the holiday party, but like just talking about this book, I realized I'm like, yeah, I do really like a man on a mission. And Jen was like, yeah, that's why you like Dark Tower. I'm like, right. I didn't make the connection until it was pointed out, but I like seeing this. And I also like seeing how he falls in love. And at what point do you abandon the mission? And I think he gets very close to just being like, you know what, maybe I am going to be happier here. Like maybe this mission isn't as important as this love in my life. And I just love like how you have to grapple with that and what it means. I love the ending. It's a huge book, but it was a page turner throughout for me. So without reservation, give it 5 bright red Pennywise clown noses. It's definitely a top 5 King book for me as well. I don't know where I would rank it. I have to do some serious thinking, but I mean, it's great. It's especially coming from Under the Dome, which I really love. And I think I gave that 5, and I think this is better. So 5 noses and a bag of popcorn. I don't know.
Oh, a bag of popcorn.
5 noses and a pan of pound cake.
And a stopwatch.
Oh, yeah. And a stop. Ooh, I like that.
Sunliner.
Caffrey.
Yeah, I mean, 5 noses. I know I say this all the time in the podcast, but what separates King for me from other horror writers who I love is just his grasp of character in the everyday. And I feel like we really feel that in this book, even though it's one of his longer books and has this kind of epic quest that traverses many, many years. What we come back to are the small moments, the intimate moments. Jake and Sadie, Jake directing a play. I love that I'm just as invested in that mice and men scene as I am the final confrontation with Oswald. Like both of them hold equal amounts of excitement for me, but for very different reasons. And it's hard to think of another author who can make both the common moments and the out of this world moments feel that riveting. I mean, for real. People always say like, oh, you know, get into some other horror authors who aren't King. And I am into other horror authors who aren't King, but man, I don't know anyone who can make the everyday feel that exciting. And the fact that I'm saying that about a time travel science fiction novel, I think speaks volumes to it. The ending is perfect. It's his best romance far and away, even more so than The Dead Zone for me. 5 stars. I liked it even more this time around. And I think in my own life too, the older I get and the less faith I have in certain institutions, the more, I don't say that pessimistically. I say that as a testament to the power of friendship and love and all that. And that sounds like such a mundane observation, right? Like, oh, well, love and companionship and the everyday is what matters. Like that does sound mundane, but I also weirdly think that is as big and profound a truth as anything else in this world. And the book speaks to that. So it just hits me on that human level the older I get and the less faith I have in bureaucracy and big institutions, but the more faith I end up having in my friends, my family, the things I love about life, including reading fiction and doing this podcast with everyone. So yeah, just really hit me in the feels this time. 5 stars. No, not stars. 5 white red Pennywise clown noses. Don't know why I say it that way, but yeah.
Well, we're up to 15 at this point. It's pretty wild. Pretty wild.
Yeah, do we have a few perfect 5s, right?
We do. I believe one of the listeners shared on Discord like this incredible, basically a dissertation, just all of our ratings on there. Some of them are very funny, but
I think we were figuring it out in the early days because there's some that I'm like, really? We all
it's a little, 5 stars. Little high on that one. Okay. I mean, look, I echo all your thoughts. You know, obviously, I think this is an incredible late career flex by King. I think it's a feat given all the research alone, all of those things. And I would say, one thing if there's to take away here is that, given all our chit chat over the last 6 to 7 weeks, it's clear that this is the Stephen King book that brought us all together in the end. And obviously I think that's special to us, but I think this hits me the hardest because of how true it is. You really, scratch the itch, Caffrey, on your final thoughts. We spoke at great lengths in that first episode at how King didn't have time to write the book in the 70s. But now I think what I'd argue is that he didn't have the time to write it in the 70s. In other words, he didn't have the past to contend with, and at least not enough with it. And, rereading it this time, I'm really marveling at how much, or I was really marveling at just how much of this experience fueled King's own meditations on the harmony of time. Like what we love, what we hate, more importantly, what we take for granted. And it's that line in the end that I mentioned in Word Processor for the Gods, brevity makes sweetness, doesn't it? Yes, I think so. Because when time is gone, you can never get it back. And that's a line that's like really vicious, and yet it's also beautiful. And it's something I too have really been fighting my whole life. And especially on this podcast, I think it was last year's Valentine's Day special. Maybe it was 2022. I talked about Willa and I talked about 1122. And I talked about how these stories connect with the idea that I just can't get over how tough that brevity is to contend with. I think at the time I was relating this moment I had with Sammy on Tom Sawyer's Island in Disney World. Just sounds so stupid, but it really was. And I remember thinking like, I don't want this to end. And even in that moment, instead of, I was just thinking like, oh, this is going to be the past before I even know it, before I even finish this thought. And it was. Mm-hmm. And because of that, I have this really bitter relationship with time. And I think my takeaway here on this read, specifically this read, is just how futile that feeling is. Like as Jake says, time is obdurate. It's unemotional. It's going to go on with or without you. And a lot of that, that's a lot to take in. And I think it's a fitting coincidence that we're recording this only hours from Christmas, as I really do actually see this story not only as an inverse to The Dead Zone, but everyone's American Christmas classic, which is It's a Wonderful Life. And in that story, as we all know, we've seen it a million times, George, not George Amberson, but George, played by Jimmy Stewart, who we mentioned earlier, he's shown all the lives that he touched and what the world would be like if he didn't exist. And in this story, Jake has shown all the lives he touched in a world he did exist in. And, you can take the lessons he learned however you want, but what I take from it is that Jake didn't respect that brevity of time. And unlike George at the end of the Capra Classic, he has to kind of live with those decisions, those consequences. And that, to me, is more of a cautionary tale. And, again, to each their own, but I think that's what makes this such a palpable story, at least to me. Because say what you will, but we all are naive to the harmonies of time. I think that's just part of the journey. I'd like to sit here and say I stopped trying to bottling time. I just try to enjoy it as it unfolds. But, in the end, we're all humans. So, but I'd like to think that I'm going to try a little bit more. And I think that's kind of what I'm going to take away from this read. And certainly one that makes this that much more, pressing on me, as I get older. So, I mean, come on, what are we talking about? It's 5 noses, 20 noses that we got here. It's a clean 5. I think there's a few, as you mentioned earlier, Caffrey, we do have a chart. There's a few that did have an overall 5 across the board. I want to say The Dead Zone was one of them.
Roadwork.
I'm pretty sure 1922 is also, no, not Roadwork, unfortunately. So while you all were out on the dance floor having fun, chopping it up with the Lindy, there's this strange guy. He kind of had an uncanny resemblance to Joe Flaherty. He walked by, he slipped me an envelope. Inside were 4 tapes. And wouldn't you know it, I have a cassette player right here to play them all. So why don't we play them?
Hello, this is Julia. Yes, I'd like some pound cake, Marchesi. I can't recommend 11/22/63 enough. It is just a masterpiece, a tremendous work of art, an accomplishment of a novel. It tackles time travel and alternate universes in history with such deft hand. You get to learn and love so many characters. For the constant readers, there's so many incredible fun Easter eggs. And for the Dark Tower junkies like myself, you have such delights as the Dekuro spirit showing up and June 19th, 1999 being mentioned. If you know somebody who you've wanted to give Stephen King to read who doesn't like horror, this is the one to really bring them in, to really show them how incredible he is and why everybody loves him as much as they do. It gets all the Pennywise noses you can give. It is a 10 out of 10, no notes, A+, Stephen King at his best.
Hey, Juniper Hill, Justin Gerber here, reporting to you live from a book depository that shall remain nameless. I'm here to give you my thoughts, of course, on 11/22/63, a book that we've covered for, it feels like 5 years, as long as Jake was back in the 50s and 60s. But I just wanted to say that this book has held up incredibly well over the last dozen years since I first read it when it first came out. The love story, of course, remains strong. And my big criticism initially was about the spying on Lee sections, which I feel have, once again, aged very well because, A, I know how long they're going to last, and B, I know the intensity, the action, and the sorrow that follows the payoff from all that spying. If this is King's last great book, so be it. I mean, look back. That would mean he'd have, great novels here and there for over 30 years, and there's not a lot of authors that can say that. Even the best authors out there can't really say that. That is quite the achievement. So I'm going to go ahead and say if this book isn't in my top 5, it is absolutely in my top 10. I give 11/22/63 4.5 bright red Pennywise clown noses out of 5. Take care out there, everybody. How we danced.
No, listen, I'm telling you, 11/22/63 is King at his best. He's back, baby. It has everything you could possibly want from the King, but also so much more. It offers exhilarating, in my opinion, historical fiction, one of King's best love stories, if not the best, true moments of horror, existential dread and tension, a bevy of full, interesting characters, and a robust world that feels as familiar, dreamy, and sincere as the reality that it's based on. Yeah. The book is centered around one of the most pivotal and iconic moments in American history, and I love it for that. But at its core, it's about one man finding himself, his purpose, and his person. That dichotomy of big versus small picture storytelling is ultimately what solidifies this as one of my absolute favorite King creations. I find equal satisfaction and true joy in Jake tasting root beer and tapping the floor button in his sunliner with his foot to turn on the headlights, same as I do in his JFK mission. This book reacquainted me with King and made me fall in love all over again. I honestly don't think I would be here today, saying these words, if it weren't for this book. And for that, it's an easy, no-brainer, 5 bright red Pennywise clown noses. Wait, did you hear that? Someone else here with us?
Hello, this is Randall. This is my review of 11/22/63 by Stephen King. It is a fantastic, moving, emotional novel filled with action and adventure. I give it 5 bright red Pennywise clown noses, and I fully accept that Lee Harvey Oswald was the lone shooter. Thank you. Long days and pleasant nights.
All right. Well, you've heard all of the losers now, thanks to our mystery man that dropped all the tapes. So if, we said we were going to be thorough, and we were thorough. I hope you enjoyed this trip. That's that. This is 6 book episodes, and almost 2 months later, we've finally reached the end of this much hyped, much anticipated, and I hope we did our job right. I hope this is a much covered journey for you, constant listeners. It's kind of wild that it's over, but I'd like to think that we gave it our all. What do you all think?
What if we just put all the tapes in a box and just buried them in the woods somewhere?
We should.
Maybe somebody will find them someday.
Yeah, let's not release this.
Yeah, let's just go burn it and turn it to ashes like he does to the letters at the end. But yeah, 8 losers shared their thoughts on this. This is pretty wild. I don't know if we're going to get another series like this again. Maybe we could dedicate it to The Outsider.
Elevation. Just all
Elevation.
Of us
Oh, yeah. Let's do
6 parts.
Yeah.
30 hours of Elevation.
I actually really like Elevation.
I like it too. When it actually exceeds the audiobook, our podcast, that's when
Yeah. But the crazy thing is, though, is that this isn't even all the content. We have 6 book episodes, but, we also have Randall's interviews with Brennan James and James DiGiorno. and even more conspiracy content than those. So, check those out. And Jen already hinted at it, but if you're not already a member of the Barons, become one, www.patreon.com/thebarons, because we are going to get a Jen's King character corner all about the citizen of the century herself,
Lady Dunhill.
Oh, yes, Woo-hoo! yes. So that rounds us up to almost like 9 episodes, I think, at this point. So that's a lot.
10 more and we got 19.
I know. We should just add another 10. I really wish that we could have talked to like Kearns or Joe Hill or something like that. But, hey, 9 episodes, what are you going to do? And guess what? That's not even the end. I guess the 10th episode will be our coverage of 11/22, the series. We have that Hulu 2016 miniseries to cover, and that's going to kick off our 8th season in January. 8th season. Jesus Christ, that's fucking wild. And, who knows? Maybe we'll have some familiar faces, a few stars to chime in, talk about their time. We'll see. It'd be cool to get J.J. Abrams on the line. Well, I don't know if that'll happen, but be like, hey, J.J., I hear you're a Phantasm fan. Let's talk all about Phantasm.
When I hear JJ, I always think of Wet Hot American Summer. JJ, save me a waffle.
Save me a waffle. Well, let's hope he does save us a waffle. Gives us a little waffle of an episode, with some whipped cream and cherries on the top.
And syrup.
Anyway, we've got a lot of stuff coming up. We never stop. We've got the holidays, but look, we delivered you episodes all throughout the holidays. Do you know any other podcasts that do that? I mean, you probably do, but if you don't, hey, that's a win on us. If you think that's pretty cool, you should give us some bright red Pennywise clown noses ourselves. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We'd really appreciate it. And also be sure to follow us on socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Threads. We are on Threads. We don't really post on there, but hey, give us a follow there as well. You never know.
Maybe we will.
We might. Once again, thank you to Charlie Lawrence of the Most for our most excellent theme song, the Friend Song, and our trusty editor, Kyle Rozovich, who kept us along the beam and always does from now until ever. Speaking of which, we'll be seeing you back on the beam in January. So be safe, be warm, be merry over long days
and
pleasant
nights.
I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. But you want somebody to treat you good.
This is the end of our show. For now. We hope you enjoyed this production. If you like our programming, consider searching for other bloody disgusting podcasts, such as Creepy, Horror Queers, The Boo Crew, SCP Archives, Nightlight, Margaret's Garden, and more.